Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
構成藤田 Listening Keeping Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace Up podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we will review Best of the Super Junior 33, nights 4 through 7, and cover all its news in the world of New Japan and pro wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network and Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts and newsletter over at socialsuplex.com. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping a Strong Style logo. We are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads. Sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, how you doing, man?
Jeremy, what do you want to talk about?
Well, you know, we're in the middle of this riveting Best of Super Junior tournament.
Don't do that. Don't be that negative podcaster that's gonna get, you know, the rowdy, you know, gatekeepers on Reddit who are like, what the fuck's wrong with these dudes? Why do they even cover this? They don't like the product, blah 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 blah. Don't do that. You need to be a shill. Okay, you need to sell your soul to the Shinihan, to the Lion's Mark, and, you know, everything that they do is good, period.
Oh, man. I mean,
I don't know if, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, so I think we've sold our soul to the Shinihan.
Oh, boy. I don't know. I know that we're in, you know, for those who are listening, obviously we don't record in the same location any longer. Except on rare occasions, and we're fairly close to one another in the Tampa Bay area, but we are getting a huge storm right now. I don't know if you're being affected or what the weather's like for you right now.
It was slightly raining a little bit earlier, but it hasn't like come down crazy yet here.
Well, I've got I know oftentimes we start the show, you got my dog Jones sitting on your lap. Well, I've got a little baby of my own, but it's a different kind of baby. I've got Ziggy the dog, who is deathly afraid of, you know, the rain and the thunder. So, you know, just letting everybody know.
And, you know, we're recording on Tuesday because yesterday was Memorial Day, and we had a question from Rambo and saying, which roster members would you invite to a Memorial Day cookout? Who absolutely would never get the invite no matter what?
Okay, so we're not just talking about the Super Juniors field, or Super Junior, I should say, field. This is the entirety of the roster.
Yeah, the whole Shinihon roster. Who's coming to the Young Boy Cookout and who's not?
Is this just New Japan, or does this include New Japan of America, or does it include the Bushiroad Greater Family, like Wrestling World Wondering Stardom?
He was not specific. He just said roster members. So I guess take that how you want to take it.
I can make jokes, but I won't. Here's the thing, Jeremy, and I get that this is a comedic question. I'm going to answer it for sure, but I'm not one to really aim to try and hang out with professional wrestlers necessarily. And we've done that before, and I've got friends in the industry, but I don't know. For me, I'm a fan of quite a few wrestlers. I like their work. I like their character, their gimmick, but I'm not one of these people that are like, damn, I wish I was, sitting there at fucking, Sonny's barbecue with, I don't know, Chase Owens or some shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or even like, let's say a Top Guy. Do they still have Top Guys in New Japan?
Damn.
Let's just say Suit.
Fire.
Like, I'm not trying to chill with Tsuji. You know what I mean? I like Tsuji. If we're in Japan and we happen to enter a karaoke room at the same time, that sounds cool. But I'm not going out of my, I don't desire to invite very many people from the roster to come to my barbecue necessarily.
Yeah.
That being said, who do you think on the roster is cool?
Well,
we're talking real world cool, not wrestling.
Not kayfabe cool. Well, first of all, I'm gonna go with the negative first. I'm telling you right now.
So Fale's off the list.
That's not even the name I was thinking about. Under no circumstances is Yohei Komatsu, whatever his name is, stepping into my cookout after he just got done making a poop sculpture and doing who knows what else.
I would say no Yo. I would say no Show. No Taguchi. Definitely no Chase Owens. Definitely no Fale.
Yeah. I mean, all of House of Torture is pretty much.
Mostly. Is there any... Kanemaru gets the pass.
Yeah, I feel like Kanemaru would just be chilling in the corner, drinking his whiskey. He's going to swing through
with Centauri whiskey. You know what I mean? Like, as a housewarming present. Yeah. He's going to throw down. So that's cool.
Dude, I feel like Gato would be funny as hell to have chilling at the cookout.
ELP is cool.
Yeah.
We've talked to him. He could come through. Zach, I don't really know because I don't know. I think Zach's a vegan, right?
I think so, yeah. So
or vegetarian. If I'm incorrect, don't anyone tell him. I'm not trying to slander him, but it's like my cookout's going to be meat based. I don't know. Maybe you can have some macaroni. I don't
grow some vegetables up on the side.
Not on my grill. That's just not touching my grill. Like,
you never had a nice grill, corn on the cob.
I'm just playing. Who obviously I would die to have Tanahashi show up at my cookout, but I don't know how many I'll tell you one person. He's not really on the roster, but since he's working the company this year, for sure, Will Ospreay's not coming to my cookout. I'll tell you that much. That's not going to work for me, brother.
Oh man.
Probably most of the United Empire will be cool, except no Jake Lee. Sorry.
Yeah, nah. I feel Akira through.
Can swing through.
Zayn J. I'm digging the Zayn J. He can roll through.
You got to be a little leery of Okan and what kind of what kind of vibe he may bring to the event, but if he's on his best behavior, that's a solid pickup for a party. There's Hinari, obviously big fan of Hinari. We have mutual friends, but there's also the Manosphere shit that you're hoping maybe he's trying to eat. I've noticed that there's been less of the Manosphere connection with him. Maybe he's trying to distance himself from that shit. But for a guy you want to just sit down and grab a couple drinks with, Hinari can come through.
What about Newman? Is that too much Osprey adjacent, or you think Newman will be? No,
Newman could come through. He's gonna beat Osprey's ass this year. So. What about Desperado? I'm a little iffy on Despy.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like he could be chill, but also be very weird too at the same time.
I don't want him to see like barbecue skewers and then be like, all right, it's time to have a fucking death match.
Side rolls with him.
Yeah, he starts putting people through the wicker, outdoor patio furniture, and they use the skewers, and they start putting, you're out there doing some kebabs, and they grab all those skewers, they start poking them in people's heads. Plus, Desperado without the mask, he's kind of too good looking to kind of, I don't want him around my wife, like,
Yeah. Ishii, I feel like Ishii's got to roll through.
Bro, Ishii's like, he's not cool, bro. Like he's unless you're really, really, really cool with him, but like he's gonna show up in gimmick, and he's gonna be scowl faced the whole time. And I feel like you're gonna have to get quite a few drinks in him before you get anything of any sort of
before you get a Hello Kitty Ishii.
Yeah. I don't know.
Shingo?
Maybe. I don't know. The jingoism. I don't know if he breaks bread with the other side. You know what I mean?
Him and Suji might not be, y'all.
I'll tell you one that's a little out of left field, but Sonata can come through.
Really?
I know that I put the kibosh on Despy for the handsomeness, but it's not just the handsomeness, it's everything else. I said it's like a combo deal. But Sonata, I get the feeling that outside of the ring, Sonata's a cool motherfucker. A dude that you want to chill with.
Yeah. I know.
That's the vibe I get.
I know I said no how to torture earlier, but I might let Dick Togo roll in. He's going to bring cigars.
Oh, Dick Togo's for sure coming. For sure. All the old heads, Jado, Ghetto, anyone that worked Michinoku Pro and, all those scummy, shindy scummers, like, yeah, those guys are all coming through.
Yeah, definitely Kojima. He's going to bring the bread.
Kojima is like a for sure.
All that's the buns going to come through with him.
Nagata.
Yeah.
So, good question. Speaking of, real quick, I know we got a lot to jump into, but speaking of grilling, here very shortly, I will be able to host grilling venue, or I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but soirees and get-togethers, because me and my wife have just recently, it's not finalized, but it's happening. It's moving pretty swiftly. We're just waiting on a couple, to cross some T's and dot some I's, but we've purchased a home. We already owned our home, but we're upgrading and getting like a big boy house and have an incredible outdoor area that's going to be outfitted. I haven't picked which one yet, but I'm definitely getting a wood pellet smoker / grill with, the smart ones with the thermometers.
Yeah.
Control from your phone.
The app gimmick. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's high time that we Social Suplex get together, so Chris Amsawacha, I know you like to consider yourself the grill master, but a new challenger has entered the stage.
Yeah. Shout out and congratulations once again to you guys. And, finally all that keeping it strong style money is paying off, but able to make a nice down payment there, get you a house.
Yeah. I mean, a very small percentage of what we make. I think what we've made lifetime might be enough to cover the inspection fee that I just had to pay today.
So go ahead, hit that donate button if you want to help Josh pay property tax.
Taxes? You pay taxes? Bro, you pay taxes, you're a bitch. Oh, man. You ready to jump into 4 nights of Super Junior action?
I guess so.
The best.
So night 4 through 7. Night 4 was May 20th from Corkin, had an attendance of 1,257. Night 5 was May 22nd in Osaka, the Osaka Municipal Central Gymnasium, Sub Arena, attendance of 1,192. Night 6, May 23rd, Hajime, we had a attendance of 1,153. And night 7, May 24th, was in Kyoto KBS Hall, 767 attendance. So, Josh, I know you were not here last week. So before we dive in the blocks, what has been your overall takes, ratings, opinions, vibes on this year's tournament so far?
Yeah, so I'm probably telling on myself a little bit here, but normally on a week that I miss, I immediately hop on and I want to hear what Jeremy had to say. I have started our episode, but this is probably the first time in a while that I haven't fully listened to everything that you had to say about it. You know what I actually found myself doing was I was listening to the show. I always listen on like 2x speed, and I just realized like halfway through the episode, I was like, I haven't really been paying attention. I need to start this episode over. So I haven't really even gotten to your full feelings on it, but you did kind of give an overview at the beginning of the episode. You mentioned that, it was unfortunate that I was sick last week. It wasn't because I was partying. It was an actual illness, but yeah, I noticed that you were high on the first night and a little bit lower on the second 2 nights, but overall, it's a good to very good tournament, but maybe not necessarily the lofty, great level of junior action that we typically, look for when you're wanting to celebrate one of these tournaments as an all-time great tournament. It's not quite to that level just yet. I will say though, from what I've seen, every night, there really are very few bad matches. There's a few that are like basic. Obviously, a lot of that has to do to a lot of the shorter match times that we've been seeing, which I'm okay with that. Like in the instances where there are some of the older competitors like Taguchi or Kanemaru, guys that they're not going to give you much anyways, I'm kind of okay with them kind of keeping those short. And then they've kept a lot of the other undercard matches fairly short as well. And in those instances, they're not bad, but they're not standout. There's I will say some of the Jacob Austin Young matches, this no slight on him. I don't feel that they've been giving him enough opportunity to really showcase. He's kind of, maintaining that lower card of the night position. And so some of his stuff's been kind of fairly basic, but there's always at least 1 or 2, sometimes 3, but generally 1 or 2 very good to borderline great matches per evening, which is very good. Mm-hmm. At the same time, and this is the last thing I'll kind of say, is like when they have the 9 or 10 match all junior match shows, we've in the past talked about the positives and negatives in terms of match structure, predictability of the booking and things like that. And there's positives when you get, you're not having to watch the undercard filler tag matches, but it also kind of means less people are going to get ring time. Some of those matches that on paper should be really, like, for instance, just an example, Watto versus Teton. It was good.
Yeah.
But we know that they can have a classic and they went like 12 minutes because they're lower on the card. And that's just kind of what it is. Where I'm kind of disappointed. And that's kind of been the gist of the tournament. But in the second week, we've started to move more into the 4 and 5 match, just all block. Things have been wonky, obviously, because of Valiente and
Kasai.
And Jun Kasai. They missed the first night, so they've had to like play some catch up and kind of shuffle things around to make the blocks work. But we've been getting like 4 to 5 match nights. And in those instances, you kind of normally would expect, okay, because there's an hour, maybe less than an hour of preview tags, then you get a lot more focus, a lot more time for those shorter, just single block tournament nights. And I don't feel like the guys, they still have kept a lot of the matches short, as if we're on a full everybody's competing night, which has been strange. There are some injuries in the tournament that might have something to do with what's going on. But the other thing too is I don't feel like the guys are fully, and there are outliers. I'm not trying to bury everybody, but I don't feel like by and large, everybody is going out of their way to prove a point, work their ass off, and really make the most of the opportunities they're getting on those evenings. It's a little paint by numbers. You think of what the overarching theme of New Japan in 2026 has been, and it's been young guys, grabbing the brass ring, grabbing the bull by the horns, and creating this sort of forward momentum and energetic enthusiasm. And people have been very excited. That's why I keep hearing, New Japan is so back, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing that in this tournament right now. And I have a few other thoughts, but those are my broad general vibes overall with everything.
Yeah, and I'm pretty much right there with you. I feel like the tournament's been just a little bit underwhelming, in a vacuum, bell to bell. Yeah, it's, good to very good wrestling. Like, I mean, if we were getting this kind of action, in, Minerig Hall or, a gymnasium here in Tampa for Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling, I'd be like, man, this is like really, really good stuff that I'm watching. But I'm like, it's best of Super Juniors. What are we doing here? And I just feel like there's to steal a phrase from Voices of Wrestling, a lot of light and pop. We're having guys kissing Taguchi's butt, exposed. We got stuffed leopards running around, disqualifications, and it's just a lot of like funny ha. And I'm like, where's the action? And yet, like you said, where's the young guy that's grabbing the bull by the horns? And obviously there are some guys who are performing very well, but the overall energy of, New Japan is back, these are the top guys that we're pushing, just has not really been there. And I feel like even some of the guys who are on top of the leader blocks are a little bit weird right now. And also there's still time to kind of shake that out. But it just kind of feels like a very kind of chill tournament where, your semi-main and main events are the ones that are like, okay, this is Super Juniors. But then on those 9-10 matches, like, man, even though they are quick, it's like, dude, like, give me something. Like,
yeah, the first night was by far the best night. And I saw people talking about the seventh night being like, almost as good as the first night. And there were a couple borderline great matches, and we're going to talk about them, but there just really hasn't been that standout evening. And I don't know that there's anybody, and don't get me wrong, there is a pocket of guys that have clearly differentiated themselves from the rest of the field. But all the same, I don't feel like I'm watching a star in the making or a resurgence of anybody. Even those guys, just to name a few: Francesco Akira, Robbie X, who else is kind of Kosei Fujita, but Jun Kasai obviously is like sort of standing out. But Nick Wayne is a guy that's working really hard. Obviously, there is the kind of funny thing that's been said for a while here, which is like white boy summer, white boy New Japan right now.
Yeah.
But the reality is the outsiders like Eagles. Honestly, the domestic guy who's working the hardest and having the best matches is probably Ishimori, I would say.
Yeah.
Which is no surprise considering the run that him and Robbie X have had recently. We've talked about his resurgence. But, those 4 or 5 guys, and, there's how many people, 20 people in the tournament?
Yeah.
So you're talking about basically a quarter of the guys who are having strong tournaments, but none of them are really standing head and shoulders above or look like the next ace or a guy that, as of right now, that I would feel confident being like, they're going with them. And we have the enthusiasm of what the future holds for this junior division. It's kind of not there right now. The other last thing too is, we know about Ghetto's tropes when it comes to point totals and how he books round robin tournaments. We've even seen over the past few years some variances in how he likes to handle, a tournament where there is no semifinals or no knockout stages versus when he does include those extra, and how that variable can change things. But in this tournament in particular, most recently, because we are getting, I forget off the top of my head. We are getting knockout stages. We're getting
we're getting the A1 versus B2, B1 versus A2. Yep.
Last year, and he's done this in the past, he has had guys very parity based all throughout the tournament, so that nearly everybody, except for a few outliers, are still alive going into the final couple nights, to keep the hope alive that any of them could potentially squeak through to get into the top two slots of the block. And in fact, last year, the winner of Best of the Super Juniors, Kosei Fujita, he was 5-4 in block play before he actually made it to the playoffs, which was, kind of shocking.
Yeah.
And so right now, when you see a match in particular where one guy has 3 wins and the other guy has 1, and that the guy that has the better point total should, in kayfabe, normally, if it was a Road 2 show or whatever, they'd probably be winning. But that they need to keep Valiente alive or whoever.
Yeah.
They're going to give them the win. And now it kind of takes some of the predictability away from, or the unpredictability away from you, the viewer.
Yeah. And, at one end, I think, the whole keeping everybody even can be excited, because then you're like, it could be anybody that gets through. I do think that sometimes that's the right way to go, and there's some excitement to that. But I also feel like when you're in like a rebuilding stage, there's no super clear. Also, Despe's kind of like, I guess, like the default top star of the division. But, also there's Hiromu's gone and some other guys from the past are gone, and the division's not as strong as it used to be. I feel like in a time like this, it's better to pick, your 1 or 2 guys in each block and give them the super push and kind of make them stand out ahead of the pack, which kind of tells your viewers, like, these are the guys, like, they're the ones who are pushing, they're ahead of everybody. These are the guys you need to pay attention to. And I feel like that kind of helps reestablish. And then I feel like when you have a more kind of loaded, where you're like, it's Shingo, it's Ospreay, it's Kushida, it's Ricochet. When you have that loaded roster of guys, I think the whole parity thing makes a little bit more sense. It's more exciting. But now when it's like, all right, we need to establish guys, reload, push the future, I think now the time where, Vegeta should be coming out here, super push, and Watto, and whoever the other young guys they really want to get over should be really standing out.
I don't disagree with you at all. I will say this, though, everything you said totally makes sense, but even in today's environment, would I be okay with a primarily parity-based block? Sure, that's fine. It doesn't do anybody necessarily any huge favors to get them over, but like you said, there could be excitement to that. I think the issue I have with it is the redundancy of tournament after tournament after tournament continuing to do the same booking, patterns. That's where I think you need variability year to year or every couple years to do fresh and exciting different things. And sometimes, especially with Super Juniors, for whatever reason, like, I don't know, who on that creative committee is advocating for this, but like right now, you mentioned some of the guys at the top are a little perplexing. I think Teton makes sense, but you kind of know that the guys who are all a little bit behind but still alive are going to start picking up some big wins here in the next week, and it's pretty clear that that's what's happening. But where this tournament is a little bit failing, not just from the match quality standpoint, there's not much of a narrative. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
There's typically a couple. Actually, what's funny about this tournament is normally there are a few through lines that are really strong that are going to play into like the finals and be like the broad stories of the tournament and kind of continue with those guys as, whoever are in the playoffs and whatever the rest of the year holds for them. They're kind of usually those top 4 guys are players throughout the rest of the year. But then the lower guys, even the guests, usually have some sort of thing. And in this case, it's more like they got gimmicks, but they don't have things, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like Hayo's got the fucking plush doll, you know, Jun Kasai, for better or for worse, you know, he's having hardcore matches in the middle of a Super Junior tournament, which is cool, but there's not a lot of like story purpose behind the motivation of who the only guy I can point to that I can say every night, or like, for instance, Kushida, he's taking his shoes off every night and that's his thing. Like, but that's really nothing.
But he was doing that last year.
Yeah. The one guy who is trying his hardest to build character work throughout all of this, in my opinion, is Francesco Akira. He he has a clear purpose behind what he's doing. He's getting engaged with people, bringing up the history of their feuds. He's attacking people backstage.
Yeah.
You know, he has a bit more of a chip on his shoulder. And I wonder if that's because he's projected to go deep in the tournament. I don't know.
Yeah. And honestly, speaking of Akira, I think one of the guys that's getting over the most in this tournament is somebody who's not even in it, Zane J. I feel like Zane J, you know, he's been seconding Akira and Jacob Austin Young, and then the nights that there's undercards, he's been teaming with those guys. I feel like he's been doing a great job of getting himself over, projecting. He had the right facial expressions, kind of being in the right place at the right time, interference spots, and, you know, he's having heat with all the other young lions. I feel like he's coming off as a star on this tour.
I will say this, despite the losing effort and record, Daiki Nagai is fighting his ass off every night. Yeah. It's very clear that there is a formula and a template to what they have provided him, but he is the hungry guy that is going out of his way to maximize his minutes. He's not going to win very much of these matches. I don't think he's getting over to this extent. I'm going to give you a comparison, and I don't want to make it sound like hyperbole, but there's a similarity here. Those 2013, 2014 G1s when Hanma was going winless and was getting over and was trying to land the Kokeshi, and it really came down to like, on the second year, he finally beat Ishii, and that was like this big fucking deal. I think for Nagai, I think we probably want to keep an eye on whoever his last two opponents probably are, because he's trying his damnedest to land that Dynamite Kid headbutt. Yeah. And he keeps missing, but they're kind of creating the impression that if he lands it,
it's game time.
He might get the upset here. So that's something I've noticed, is like there is sort of this drive where, you know, he's not as much of an underdog as like Hanma was, but and the people are not as fervent for him as they were for Hanma, but there is a little bit like the underdog thing. They want to see him succeed and get that upset win.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into the blocks, and we'll talk more about each guy and kind of what's going on with them. So starting the A block, on top of the block right now is Teton, who's sitting at 5-1 with 10 points. So great week here for Teton on night 4, defeating Valiente Jr. in 7 minutes and 44 seconds. Night 5, he defeats Ryusuke Taguchi in 7 minutes and 31 seconds, and then eats his first loss on night 7 to Robbie X in 15 minutes and 28 seconds.
Yeah, so, you know, Teton has essentially kind of fulfilled the Volador Jr. role as the de facto annual combatant from CMLL, who is booked as like, you know, kind of like a top guy in this tournament. We've seen him go to the semifinal, or actually to the finals a couple years ago against Watto. So he hasn't done quite as hot in the point totals since that tournament, but he's always a guy that can be in play. So it makes sense that he is believably winning a lot of these matches. And also, if you kind of look at the early portion, almost everybody that he's faced is beatable.
Yeah.
He hasn't really been put in there with the higher end, quote unquote, main eventers of his block. So it makes sense that he would have this many wins. The Valiente Jr. match was kept very short. That was the match where Valiente, it was unclear if he would even come back from the injury. He did. Man. First time matchup between those guys. They did the hug, but it was kept short at 7 minutes. The Taguchi match was just basically Taguchi garbage, and that's not even me saying it derogatorily. They're giving him sub 5-minute matches almost every night. But that Robbie X match is easily the best match of Titan and Robbie X's tournament so far.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that match. That was coming on to the end. I think it was I can't remember if it was the semi-main or main event of that evening. I think it was a semi-main event. Yeah, because Kasai was in the main event that night. When you got down to that, I was like, oh, finally, like something that's super junior worthy. And we'll get to Robbie X, but I think he's been absolutely killing it this tournament. But yeah, and this was Unbound versus Unbound here with Titan and Robbie X, and I just felt like they had a lot of great, what you want to see, a lot of great high flying, a lot of great counters, great speed, and so I thought this match rocked.
But what's funny about that is like, yes, it is Unbound versus Unbound, but in my mind, it's not. In my mind, it's War Dogs versus LIJ still, even though they're part of the same group. Like they don't look, we've talked about before, they don't look like they're part of the same faction at all. But that match was really incredible. I guess that's one of the few exceptions, because there's always exceptions to the rule. I talked about how they're going to keep certain guys alive, so it does break the unpredictability. But Robbie X really kind of needed that win to stay alive, and it was cool to see him get his first big singles win in a main event in New Japan. That's a big moment. Even if you could kind of call the upset based on the totals, it didn't diminish the moment,
Yeah. Yeah, really good match. And yeah, it kind of seemed like maybe Titan was going to continue the streak and, be 6-0. But yeah, Robbie able to pull that big upset there and get the win, keeping his hopes alive. And again, that's a very important win over the top guy in the block. So if Robbie goes on a run, he could potentially, have that tiebreaker over Titan, or at least get close enough to Titan to slide into the A2 spot.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just taking a quick gander. Obviously, cage match is not the end all be all, but it is a good indication of what some of the, the more diehard fans that are actively watching, how they're perceiving things. That match is sitting at an 8.03 and is currently the third highest rated match of the tournament. And I think that is easily one well worth recommending for sure.
Yeah, definitely in that 4.25, 4.33 star range. Really, really good action there. And so we'll see what happens with Titan. I kind of think he's probably going to be on the downfall for the rest of the tournament. Probably going to end up 5-4, maybe even 6-3, and get kind of eked out by tiebreakers.
Possibly. Yes, I think 6-3 is probably a little more likely in my estimation. Because he's already at 10 right now, right?
Yeah, he's 5-1 right now.
I don't see him losing every single match personally. I think that he's actually, in my estimation, pretty close already to locking up a potential playoff spot. But like you said, he's going to eat some major losses that will play into the tiebreaker scenario. So he probably will be 6-3, be on the bubble, and maybe get eked out.
Yeah. So next up, we'll talk about Master Wato, who's sitting at 4-2 right now with 8 points. So night 4, Wato defeated Francesco Akira in 11 minutes and 9 seconds. Night 5, he defeated Kosei Fujita, 14 minutes and 30 seconds. And then on night 7, defeating Valiente Jr. in 7 minutes and 17 seconds. And we had a question from Def Triangle 720. Do you think we've seen the best version of Wato in the Fujita match?
In this tournament, that's probably, I don't know. Do you think that's the best match that you've ever seen from Wato? I don't, but I think it's up there.
The best probably since the Teton finals
right.
a couple of years ago.
Unless you count some of his tag work. But, one thing I think people forget is he's had some really great matches with both Hiromu as well as Mike Bailey a couple years ago in this tournament, which is a little bit of a slept on match. And I kind of think both of those matches are better than this one.
Yeah.
But this is in the conversation. I think the bigger question is long-term, have we seen the heights of what Wato will attain in this company in terms of creative and booking. You know, are we ever going to see the ascension of this guy, or is he essentially a junior version of a guy like, say, oh man, what's wrong with me? Who was the big muscle guy in, this is embarrassing because I should know his name. Big muscular domestic guy from Monster Morning that retired a couple years ago.
Nakanishi.
Is he going to be like a Nakanishi type guy that, like, you know, has an accolade from a tournament, you know, challenges for titles, is always kind of a threat, but never really taken seriously. And then eventually maybe gets a gold bracelet, you know, attaboy, like quick title run down the line. And then that's it. Like, is he a never was?
I mean, at this point, I think so. You know, you mentioned the Teton match earlier from last week. It's like, yeah, you would think if he was a guy that was going to be pushed, like that would be a featured match. That would have been a main event, and they would have hyped it up, you know, the big, you know, finals rematch, and they put it, you know, close to the beginning of the card, and, you know, very few, you know, short minutes of that match. And so I feel like a lot of his booking, he's gotten some main events, but mostly he's kind of been towards the, you know, the first half of the card, these kind of quick matches. And yeah, I think part of it, parts of creative and then parts of him, because I feel like there are just some nights where, I don't know, he's just not super delivering. But then you get to the Fujita match in his hometown main event. You know, they've kind of built up some heat between him and Fujita this year, with some of the backstage promos and angles and stuff like that. And to me, he was wrestling like on fire. Like, he was super hungry, super motivated. And I can understand why we're getting questions like, you know, is this the best he's been? Because I feel like, yeah, he looked really, really good and was on fire. He was so crisp. Like, he was hitting everything clean. He showed a lot of fighting spirit. The crowd was behind him. Like, it was almost a similar Teton-esque moment where he kind of had the magic in one night. And it was like, man, if this guy performed like this every night, he could be a star. But he only, for whatever reason, when he's in those big moments, it's when he kind of lets it all go. And then when he's not in the main event, it just kind of seems to kind of be status quo.
I somewhat agree. I've also seen him in big title matches drop the ball, you know, where you start to believe in the guy. That's why I've kind of like, until the consistency is there, I can't buy in on this guy, even though I have been a few times in the past. He's tricked, you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, you can't get fooled again. But you know, the funny thing with Watt, I think Watto for me has been, for any negativity we might have, he's been fairly solid in his other matches, other than the Fujita match. He's still, you know, he's hitting topes, he's throwing stiff strikes, and he's doing a good job selling, and he's throwing those mid kicks, like Bryan Danielson-esque mid kicks throughout the match. That stuff's all cool. But like you said, he's not getting many main events, so he's kind of wrestling to the level of where he's booked on the card. Mm-hmm. And there's not much to engage with in terms of, like, you know, true belief that he's going to go deep in the tournament. The other thing too is, even though he doesn't have a lot of main events, you look at who he's already wrestled, and Teton, Watto, Akira, and Fujita are four of the very best guys in the block that he has. Some of those guys, especially Fujita and Francesco Akira, probably projected to be contenders for the finals. He's 1-1 with them in this tournament. It's sort of like he's already had, if we were expecting him to really turn out, it's probably already happened. That Fujita match is like big match. You know, everyone used to talk about big match Taguchi.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, that was probably big match Watto.
Yeah.
Of course, you know what? I could be wrong. We've been advocating for young guys to get an opportunity. They've pushed this guy deep before. He is kind of closest to the top of the block, and maybe that Fujita win will be something. I don't want to totally discount it, but I just personally don't have I could see him being a semifinalist, but I can't see him going back to the finals or winning the tournament ever again.
Yeah, I see him kind of similar to Teton, where they're going to kind of come crashing down this coming week. They're going to eat some losses, and I don't really see him going to semifinals. Like, if he does, it's not so much of a surprise, but I think just the way that he's been booked in this tournament so far, I feel like, the peak was, him getting the wins over Akira and Fujita, and he's going to be on the downslide, and will probably end, 5-4, have a good point, 10-point total, but that not make it through. And to me, like, him losing to somebody like, or beating Fujita, that screams like Fujita wins a title and Wato's a challenger.
Like, we've always talked about the difference between a New Japan Cup and a G1 Climax, especially when the G1, in the past few years has also had like knockout rounds and playoffs and stuff like that. And it's like with the New Japan Cup, you usually kind of have to play your, all right, they're not going to give you whoever the top tip-top stars are. They're not all going chalk and going into the Final Four. And, you're not getting G1 level playoff matches. You're getting something else that's an alternative. I prefer, since this is the only premier single juniors tournament in the company right now, because there's no Super J Cup, I prefer that they book it closer to a G1, so that you are seeing the guys that you absolutely are most fervent and excited about, as opposed to where we've kind of seen some New Japan Cupism and they're kind of playing around, and it's like, don't play games with me, bro.
Right. New Japan Cup
this is the best of the Super Juniors, not the kind of okay of the Super Junior.
Yeah, New Japan Cup, they kind of feel the freedom, like, oh, let's test some things out. Yeah, we go, let's give, Uemura a final main event. Let's throw some other guys. Let's get Bolton Far in there. Let's experiment, play around, give some guys some chances. But then, when it comes to something like Super Juniors, we don't have any other single senior tournament. So, why are we
don't have that luxury.
Right. It's like, let's get the guys in there that are going to deliver big and not really experiment. And I know that on one end, we are saying, you should push young guys and get some young guys over, but at the same time, I think you want to capture, some great matches and some great essence going into these semifinals and finals, the things that are going to be most compelling. And I feel like, you got to have the right guys in the right seats for that.
I agree. And I'm okay, like, with, it's not like, I'm not saying it needs to be the same big four guys every year. It doesn't have to be Desperado, Hiromu, Ishimori, and whoever else you want to throw in there. It doesn't have to be like that, but you want the guys that are going through to get the best pushes, to have the best showings in the tournament. If you're going to have someone who has never risen to that place, you don't want them kind of just barely eking in a way to where you don't believe in them and they're not getting over. Like, you want it to be perceived as the four guys that go into that playoff round truly have shown themselves to be the best of the Super Junior.
Exactly. Well, let's move on to somebody else who's sitting at 8 points right now. That is the crazy monkey Jun Kasai, sitting 4-2. Night 4, defeating Daiki Nagai, 4 minutes and 46 seconds. Night 5, defeating Robbie X, 12 minutes and 6 seconds. Night 6, he lost to Valiente Jr. in 7 minutes and 1 second. And then at night 7, rebounding against Nick Wayne in the main event, 13 minutes and 50 seconds. And a special guy in the Discord says, I personally just like to hear what Young Boy's overall thoughts are on the Jun Kasai matches in the tournament.
I personally love them. I love the inclusion of Jun Kasai in this tournament, because if they're not going to give me the same level of Super Junior that we used to see when, like, Ricochet and Bandito and Will Ospreay and,
P. Hiromu, P. Kushida.
Like the peak of those guys. If we're not going to get that sort of level of things, then I'm okay with there being some variety. And it's been pretty clear that Jun Kasai, and we sort of called this ahead of time, but he's proven to our expectations that he's going to work his style of match. Now, is he going to be able to go full death match in a New Japan ring? No, but they're finding creative ways to work around the limitations of the rule set. And they're very, the referees are being very lax with him on the outside.
Yeah.
he's skirting, he's getting close to, could be, disqualified. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some sort of disqualification with him or count out by the time it's all said and done. But he's getting great reactions from the audience. The match that he had with Robbie X correct me if I'm wrong, was that the match that they brought in the ladder? The ladder?
Yep.
I loved that match. A lot of people did. I see a lot of purists poo-pooing on that match. They didn't love that. I know that it is funny because there are certain elements, whether it's chair shots, skewers, brawling in the crowd. There are certain things he's doing that don't tend to, or table spots.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this stuff has kind of become part of the lexicon of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And even though ladders have played a part here and there, they're sort of like the last. Everywhere else, they're very, very abundantly overdone. But in Japan, especially in New Japan, it's so rare. It was super controversial. I saw people reacting on the domestic Twitter from the Japanese audience that were a lot of mixed opinions on that. I saw a lot of people that didn't like that shit. I thought it fucking rocked. I really did. And the thing I like about what Jun Kasai brings to the table is this classic element that appeals to my 1980s, late 1970s Puroresu fandom, where it's you used to see guys like an Abdullah the Butcher or Tiger Jeet Singh, in All Japan Women's, you would see Dump Matsumoto, the Sheik in some of those All Japan tag tournaments, these wild men and women who were rule breakers and who fought dirty and fucked up everybody's tournaments and didn't do what you wanted them to expect them. They didn't play by the rules. And they created an element of danger. And that's what he's doing. It's not quite this, it's not fans are a little bit more smartened up and it's not like he's crossing a certain line, but there is just a different element and energy to what he's doing. And I kind of enjoy it, honestly.
Yeah, he's giving everybody their real man match of the tournament. And yeah, overall, I've been enjoying what Jun Kasai has been doing. The few complaints I kind of have, and I mentioned a little bit last week, is, obviously I don't love the ref bumps. It's part of the ways that they've found ways to be able to do stuff is to bump the ref so they can pull the skewers and the ladders and tables out and stuff like that. Which, again, I pointed out last week, that would probably be more tolerable if we weren't getting that with Sho and Kanemaru and Akira and some of the other heels in this tournament.
Or even just all the years of conditioning of having to deal with it for such a length of time.
Right. So yeah, the ref bump is an immediate eye roll. But then obviously what they do afterwards is pretty cool. And so yeah, I think that kind of takes a little bit of the shine away too when you have guys like Sho and Daisuke Sasaki also kind of using weapons. Obviously, it's not to the extent of how Jun's using it, but I feel like it kind of makes what he's doing a little bit less special when you have other guys kind of doing similar things throughout the tournament. But I do think it's been a welcome addition, I think, on the card. It's a shake of pace, and I think it's been, for a tournament like this, where, yeah, we're not getting the super high-end level of stuff, I think what he's been doing has been a welcome addition to the card.
Yeah, and he, this was a guy that started the tournament a little bit late, so they kind of had to shuffle things around. They were able to basically work things out to where he's now caught up. He has his 5 matches, and he's worked a wide variety of opponents. But I think the through line with him, I mentioned earlier, narratives, what are the overarching narratives these different guys have? Jun Kasai doesn't necessarily have one, but it's kind of okay because he is, after all, a guest, an outsider. It's not like even though he's kind of adjacent to New Japan through the Desperado thing, it's not really our guy. He's a freelancer. He works freedoms. So his through line, there's a story, but it's a gimmick based story. It's not like a long-term projection. And really it's just nobody knows how to deal with me, and I'm going to make everybody fight my style of match.
Yeah.
And he's been extremely successful with that. I do wonder if it's just going to be maintaining that gimmick the entire way through the block, or if anybody is going to buck the trend and kind of scout him. And I don't think that they should play fire with fire. I don't think anybody should out hardcore him, but you think about like if Zack Sabre Jr. was a junior and he kind of is, but not really. he used to be.
Yeah.
But if a guy like him, who's a technical marvel, was wrestling Jun Kasai, he'd definitely play his game a little bit, but he'd find a way to outsmart him and make him
roll him up, getting a wacky submission kind of thing.
He'd get him with the graps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if Yano was wrestling him and it was a G1, Yano would play the ha. He would find a high jinxy way to deal with this guy. Nobody is really figuring out the logistics of that.
Yeah, Valiente Jr. this week was the one guy that kind of got like a wacky like lucha roll up on him, and even Jukasai was kind of surprised that he got caught. So yeah, you kind of have to use your advantages, your skills to kind of out wrestle the hardcoreness of him.
And even in that, like, kudos to Valiente Jr. It's a meaningful win for a guy who's also two guys in their first Super Juniors tournaments, huge age disparity, totally different styles, parts of the world. But Valiente Jr. needed that win to stay alive. And that was one of those things where I kind of called it. I was like, I kind of know he's going to beat him. The only thing that's interesting is how are they going to do it? And they kept it very, very short, and he beat him with an unexpected roll up.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but that's not really what I'm talking about. I want to see the more lengthy match where somebody is able to outwit him in a bigger way, because really Valiente Jr. was eating shit most of that match until
it seemed like banana peel kind of win.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish with Kasai, I wish what they would have done instead of like having to do the ref bumps with a jump before the bell. That the story should have been, the Best of Super Junior committee really wants Kasai. Kasai wants to do it, but he won't do it unless his matches are under Freedom rules, and you make a special exception. And from the get-go, we just know, all right, all his matches are going to be no DQ, no disqualifications, hardcore, death match.
So in the early 2000s, when MMA was like in its early infancy, the UFC was this huge promotional tool in the early, the first like 5 events where it really focused on the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Hoist Gracie sort of being that front-facing individual who was demolishing everybody. And then once the wrestlers started showing up and they were like, oh, fuck. He was like, all right, I'm going to get out of here. And he like kind of quasi-retired and just stopped fighting for them, especially once the rules started changing. So he didn't fight from 1995 to like 2000. But what started happening is when Pride launched, they were willing to pay the most money of any MMA promotion ever, and they wanted to get all the best fighters. And, they were looking to get not just Hoist, but a bunch of the other Gracie family members as well. And bro, it's the funniest shit. What you're talking about with Jun Kasai about how like, well, if you want me, we're gonna have to fight under my rules. Bro, that is legitimately what the Gracies started doing. And I don't know, you remember Kazushi Sakuraba, right?
Yeah.
Well, like his nickname was the Gracie Hunter because he was the first guy that started on the world stage in modern times, prominently beating their family members. And so it was like, they would have this unique rule set. He would abide by it. And then he'd beat one of them. And then, so they're like, oh, so then the next one, it was like this, and this. And like, they kept changing the rules. So then eventually in 2000, they have the World Grand Prix. Did you see Smashing Machine?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, the Smashing Machine deals with that tournament, but it only deals with like the Mark Coleman side of it. They don't get into the Sakuraba Hoist Gracie thing. This was like a huge, gigantic dream match. And the rules that they made were like, it had to be unlimited rounds. So there was no like unlimited rounds. Every round had to be 10 minutes long. There couldn't be any decisions. It had to go to a finish. Gracie had to be allowed to wear his judo gi, and like the referee couldn't stop the fight. doctors couldn't stop the fight. Like they were trying to put everything in the advantage of Royce Gracie, and like they were like, yeah, if you want me, and this is supposed to be like a Grand Prix tournament of all the best fighters. So everybody else is fighting under the exact same rules, but Royce's matches are all going to be contested under Gracie
Ravens rules.
And he also got his ass beat by Sakuraba in the longest MMA fight in the history of recorded sport. So yeah, he quit on his back.
Wow. Yeah, that's what they should have done with Kasai here.
But one thing I will say though is, yes, the trope of the ref bump, we've talked about it, but we've also talked about times where the company has made the referees look worse by allowing things to transpire right in front of them that really undermine their authority. And at least they're not doing that too much. I mean, the skewer spots kind of are borderline.
Yeah.
But then the other thing too is, because we know that ref bumps are kind of prevalent in kayfabe, regardless of whether we like them or not, sort of does make sense how it's happening. It's kind of House of Torturism. The difference is they're doing awesome, cool shit when the ref bump happens instead of, the terrible showisms that we're getting in this tournament.
Yeah, and I feel like how the Torture ref bumps are more egregious, where like they're literally going out of their way to knock the referee out, where these have been a little bit more like happenstance, like the ref was happening to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and got knocked down.
That's what you think, but wait till we find out at the end of this tournament. I said there's no narrative. Wait till we find out that Jun Kasai is signed with the company and he's the new leader of the House of Torture.
Oh my gosh.
And this has all been planned. One last thing I will say, because we didn't touch on it, the match with Nick Wayne, KBS Hall, big main event, first time matchup between those guys. I thought that they had a very solid, very good main event. Maybe not great, but I thought they did a lot of cool, inventive stuff there, and it was sort of like the real man match test that you talked about for Nick Wayne. Yeah,
Nick Wayne ended up with the skewers in his head, where most nights it was Kasai with the skewers in the head. So yeah, Nick Wayne, going towards the death match style there, and yeah, it was a really fun matchup.
That guy came from GCW.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Nick Wayne's, the next guy we're going to talk about, he's 3-3 with 6 points. Night 4, defeating Taguchi in 2 minutes 52 seconds. Night 5, defeating Daiki Nagai in 5:24. And then, like we just mentioned, Night 7, losing to Jun Kasai in the main event there, 13:50.
He's only really, correct me if I'm wrong, he's only had the one main event against Jun Kasai, really, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's had another main event.
I'm trying to remember if the Kosei Fujita, I don't think that was a main event. I could be wrong. No, it wasn't. It was semi-main. So he has been getting some semi-main event spots. He got a big main event here, KBS Hall. They didn't draw a fantastic house, but it's sort of this holy grail environment that everyone is always like gagas because of the stained glass. It is, it is a very attractive venue, but I feel like because he's a guy that is getting placed, in a variety of places, whether it's the undercard, semi, or main, he's getting a lot of kind of different looks, and he's trying, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way. I don't mean like, oh, he's trying his best. I mean, like, legitimately, he's trying his best, where a lot of other guys, night in and night out, sometimes they're kind of dogging it a little bit when the moment isn't quite as big. That's not to say that he's having a blowaway tournament in terms of like, are the matches that he's having, are they classics? No, I think the match that he had with Fujita is probably his best match of the tournament, followed closely by the match with Jun Kasai.
Mm-hmm.
But two things I will say is he's having a better tournament, in my opinion, than he did the year prior. So I feel like we're seeing some growth there, because he is still a young guy.
Yeah.
What is he, 21, 20?
Something like that, yeah.
I don't even think he's 21, because I don't think he's legal age to drink. But the other thing is, in the matches, even if the matches themselves are not classics, he is doing everything in his power to stand out and maximize his offense and make his shines matter and get himself over with the crowd when he's, on top. So
he's 20.
Yeah, he's 20. So like, even for instance, like, like the Daiki Nagai match, that was fine for what it was. The Francesco Akira match was one I was expecting to be a bit better than it actually was. But I can see that this guy is trying his damnedest to make an impression and get over and make his shit look good, which is what you want to see out of a young guy like him.
Yeah, and I think for him, obviously big wrestling fan, obviously with his dad being a big, guy in Seattle area and being trained there and kind of growing with this love of wrestling. I feel like he's always wanted to be in a tournament like this and really kind of stand out in New Japan. So you definitely see that drive in his work, and he's the kind of guy where like I wish he could just kind of like take a longer excursion and stay here a little bit longer, because I feel like it's almost kind of like Ospreay when Ospreay was younger. So like the longer Ospreay stayed in New Japan, the better and better he got. Like obviously he was already super athletic, but then he kind of got the things that really elevated his game. And I feel like that's the same thing that could happen to Nick Wayne. I feel like he's not getting enough of the ring time or being put in with the right guys in AEW to kind of continue to progress and get better. I feel like if he did like a full-on year, 2 years in New Japan, night in, night out, working these tours, working these programs, I feel like he would continue to really, really get better and become one of the best wrestlers in the world.
Let me ask you this, and taking the women is a totally different animal, so we're going to put that aside. But in AEW, we've seen quite a few different groups, factions, teams, and oftentimes there are situations where there are underlings in these factions. Can you think of anybody that was little homie and was able to successfully break out of that and establish themselves as a real guy in the company? And I don't mean like I don't mean like kind of close to upper mid card or like TV main eventer. Or even just like I'm not talking about TNT champions. I'm talking about main eventer, a guy that people believe in. Is there anybody who's done that?
None's coming to mind right now.
I can't think of any either. And that's not even necessarily an indictment on that company. I have lengthy, even though I don't watch it all the time. The pay-per-view they just had was incredible, by the way. I have conversations with Rich like every couple weeks, and we talk about observations, even though I'm not actively watching AEW all the time, keeping up with what's going on. There's so many good things about what they do. But one of the things I've noticed is that they're not good at pulling the trigger on young talent who start out under. The only guy that I can think of at all who came into the company and started pretty low and got to the top is Swerve.
Yeah, but even still, he was still kind of like, they did the big kind of like brought him out, big signing, a guy that you should keep your eyes on. And yeah, he wasn't main event day one, but he was definitely somebody coming in for more of a push than, say like a Sammy Guevara, who was like this young independent guy and, was, kind of Jericho's underling and was supposed to be a pillar, but never really broke out past that.
Right. And you can name a wide list of people who have been the understudy, the young gun, or in a tag team in some sort of faction who has that role. And we could literally, if we wanted to, we could list those guys all day. There's been so many of them. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because when they brought Nick Wayne on, that's where they placed him, is underneath Christian. And it is a catch-22 with him, because it's like, he's 20, he needs the reps, but he's not fully ready. And if you stick him into perpetuity in one of those underling roles, he'll just become a Daniel Garcia. He'll just become another Jack
Wheeler
Yuta. So then they're kind of like, well, we don't want to overexpose him, so we're going to put him in ROH, and that gives him some reps. But now he's underexposed, and ROH is sort of just this. That's not the
zombie
right environment. Yeah, when I was wrestling, and a lot of the guys I worked with, obviously I was never going to like be a real wrestler, but the guys I was training with, they have that aspiration. And they're always like, Matt, what can I do to get better? What can I do to get better? And he's like, you need to go wrestle the best. And they're like, how the fuck can I go get signed to go wrestle the best? I'm in Florida. But like, that was the thing. You have to wrestle the best if you want to gain what you need. And in AEW, because they don't have touring and it's weekly television and they're serving different masters, it's sort of hard to do that talent development side of things. That's where I do think, because they have such a plethora of talent. I mean, their talent pool goes so deep. It reminds me of like peak WCW. There's guys that are, world-class athletes that you just haven't seen in 6 months on their television. I think you're right. Like a guy like Nick Wayne, he's not served well being in the company today. I think he should stay on the payroll. I think he should continue to work with them, but New Japan and the rest of Japanese promotions, they figured this excursion thing out a long time ago. Mm-hmm. I don't know why Nick Wayne, someone needs to, like, Nick Wayne, if you're listening, you need to talk to Tony, and basically explain like, hey, I'm not served well in ROH and there's not the space for me here. I don't want to, I'm not going to go work NXT or whatever, once my contract's up, let's really make a play to keep me here and make me something special. Send me to New Japan, send me to CMLL. Let's do the real excursion so that when he comes back, he can really be an actual player.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what he needs. That's what's missing from his game right now. And I think, if he just goes back and wrestles a 10-minute TV match against Eddie Kingston, he wrestles, a 10-minute TV match with Jon Moxley. Like, I don't know how much that's helping him at this point.
Yeah. And that's where, like, that's the issue that has been created by the environment surrounding AEW and WWE. There's so many positives about workers having options and how it benefits them from a bargaining standpoint, more places to work. There's so many good things. Mm-hmm. The downside is it's an arms race and it doesn't trickle down, and the indies have been depleted because of it. And the moment somebody shows any sign of promise or stardom, they don't get allowed to ripen the way that Bryan Danielson, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and the rest were allowed to for all those years in Ring of Honor and on the indies and PWG and all that. That just doesn't exist right now.
Right. You look at all those names, a lot of the best wrestlers going right now. You look at their backgrounds, like, they spent time and time and time on various independents. They did a lot of traveling. Your Kenny Omegas, your Will Ospreys, all those guys. They really grinded to cut their teeth on the independents and international tours. And with the state of the independents, and like you mentioned, also there's WWE ID. I mean, guys are getting signed, I
think that's almost dead though.
Guys are getting these deals, even still being on independents. And so, the independents are so, damaged due to all the growth and the war between AEW and WWE. Like, somebody just has one good match and they're getting offers, they're getting deals. And guys are not getting a chance, also, WrestleMania weekends, like, there's not those breakout stars anymore, and these kind of special matches, or even, several years ago, you would, man, it's something cool's happening in AAW, or Defy is doing this, or, this promotion's doing that. You don't really see or hear a lot about that anymore, because it's kind of like the bottom of the barrel of the indie guys. And I'm sorry to the guys grinding out there. I know you're doing your best, but like, there's not a lot of super top tier talent on that independent scene right now. And guys, if they even show the glimmer of being great, they're gone, and then they're either stuck in NXT, where, again, similar thing, they're kind of just wrestling these quick TV matches. Maybe they'll do a Largo Loop tour and then maybe get to the main roster. And then AEW, they're either in ROH, or they're working some dark matches. They might get on a Collision every once in a while, but they're not really progressing.
I mean, athletically, it's very clear that Nick Wayne is extremely talented, very proficient. The business runs through his blood. He's got a leg up on a lot of people, but there are holes to the game, things that need to be shored up. That comes with time and experience. It is great. I think working a Super Juniors, this is the second time he's done it. It can't do anything but be an incredible learning experience, but that in and of itself alone is not enough, you know?
Yeah.
He needs more. And I think that's what we're advocating for. I am interested to see what the rest of the tournament looks like for him, but as a guy that's 3-3, he could slide in later, but he's not being booked, and I'm not getting the perception that he's on his way to a semi-main event spot right now.
Yeah, to me, he screams 5-4, not getting through kind of guy.
And I don't like that we have so many 5-4 guys that we're kind of projecting, because it's like you kind of want it to be someone that wins 7 matches minimum is like the threshold. 6 is like iffy, 5 is like you're done, but it's not. You know, we kind of know that like 5 or 6 could qualify you.
Yeah. Well, another guy that's sitting at 6 points right now is the funky weapon Ryusuke Taguchi. Night 4, losing to the aforementioned Nick Wayne in 2 minutes 52 seconds. Night 5, losing to Teton in 7:31, and then night 7, losing to Kosei Fujita in 6 minutes and 23 seconds. So Taguchi starting off hot and now on a cold streak here, losing his last 3.
Yeah, and you know, it's very, I'm sure you mentioned this last week, I didn't get deep enough in it, but it's very questionable whether he was going to actually beat Valiente or not, because the injury occurred.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows how that might have potentially affected things. But, you know, like I said earlier, they're keeping his matches short. I thought some of the stuff that he did with Nick Wayne, even though it was a short match, I thought some of the Bumbaye stuff was kind of funny.
Yeah.
You mentioned the ass play, and I will say this, like, has there been a little bit of that? Yeah, but like we've seen peak perv Taguchi time and time again, and it's really kind of toned back for this tournament, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's not as much as in previous years, but it's just a little bit. It's just the whole, you know, the rope spot where they shoot the camera where the rope's covering his butt and all that kind of stuff. And
I feel like Hyo and Yo are playing much more the comedic jester role and sort of like allowing this guy to probably transition out of this tournament, especially they're keeping his match times so short.
Yeah.
For people, you know, for people that are like, they're not amped to see Taguchi, then it's probably the right length of time. The one disappointment I've had about Taguchi in this tournament, I don't have high expectations. I'm not like looking for him to do anything major, but you kind of always expect maybe one standout performance. Mm-hmm. And the one match that I was looking at this week where I was like, this could be something if they want it to be, would be night 7, him versus Fujita. Because everyone's got the perception like Fujita should be the next guy. You've got this elder statesman, the guy who's sort of like the gatekeeper from like the Tanahashi, you know, 4th generation era, that like class of 02. And we know that when he's motivated and allowed to, he can put in a very good performance. And I felt like Fujita sort of needs that, especially with how they've kind of booked him, you know, 3-3 kind of downsidey. I felt like him and Taguchi could have a meaningful match, not like blow away, but something that would help Taguchi or Fujita's efforts. And they just didn't do that. And you don't want to see, what I want to see is the best guy. I'm not saying Fujita for sure is the best guy, but to a lot of people, he's perceived as maybe the top guy in the tournament. I would like to see him raise the lowest performer in the block to a higher standard. And instead, Taguchi on an off night is dragging Fujita down to the lower trenches of like what his match quality should be, and that's not doing anybody any favors.
Yeah, this match was all funny, haha. There was like something with the hair thing where like if one of them lost, they do like a certain hairstyle like post match. Yeah, Vegeta put like the gel in Taguchi's hair and style it a certain way, and I don't get why that was such a big deal. And yeah, they made that was more a story of the match versus like, yeah, these guys are trying to, you know, clinch the lead and get some points. And so yeah, it was a moment where yeah, that could have been used to elevate Vegeta, kind of, you know, beating somebody from the previous generation to elevate himself. But instead, they took the time to make it like a funny ha-ha kind of sight gag kind of thing and not doing any favors for Vegeta. And we have some questions here. HB Brad Valoria says, do you think Taguchi will pass Liger's all-time BOSJ win record this year, or will they save that for next year when he also passes Liger's all-time BOSJ appearance record?
All right, I'm going to be very clear. Did I mention this whole thing on the show
top
previously?
Of Super Junior thing?
Okay. Yeah. Guys, don't buy into the... I had a conversation with friend of the show, Chris Samsa, right? And I was like, do you consider top of the Super Juniors or whatever? And he was like, no. And I was like, man, I just assumed everybody did. Here's my reasoning. And, you know, part of I'm not going to besmirch the reasons he said. Like, his reasoning is basically the company considers Best of the Super Junior, even though they do acknowledge it's the same tournament, but it's a spiritual successor. But it's not like the MSG League and then the G1, and these are both round robins, but two completely different things. It's not like that. Top of the Super Juniors was Best of the Super Juniors. They just changed the name one year, and it was the next year, and it was the same fucking tournament. And I said all that to say this. You know, Sam says part of what he told me is he's like, for the purpose of record keeping and stats and everything like that, and especially since they number the Super Juniors, like they have the specific, you know, what this one's what, like 28 or something, or 33. It just makes sense. And it also doesn't like because how, you know, it's weird if you have to do the stats and then explain, oh, we're also considering top of the Super Junior, you know, it just convolutes things. So I do get all that. But as a historian or quasi fan historian, whatever you want to call me, as somebody who like believes in the integrity of certain records, I'm going to be very clear here. Taguchi is not even kind of close to touching any of Liger's records. And the two in question, most wins, another one's most matches, another one is most tournament appearances. Dog, he's going to have to compete 5 more years to get close to what Liger actually did. You know, Liger wasn't in like 22 tournaments. He was in 26 because it doesn't matter if it's top or best. It's Super Junior.
Right, yeah.
He was in 26 fucking Super Juniors. Taguchi's not hitting those numbers. And, you know, we can try and change history, but, like, Liger won those matches. That shit happened. It's not fake. It's real.
I mean, at this rate, if he continues to wrestle these shorter matches, they probably could wheel him out here for 5 more years. And
I won't even entertain the notion that these records that they're talking about on the air are in any way legitimate. To me, I understand why they're doing it, you know, to erase some confusion. But the truth of the matter is those are illegitimate stats. If you don't consider top of the Super Juniors is Best of the Super Juniors, they are the same tournament. And if you don't count those, for me as a completist, they're not real. Yeah. They're not legitimate.
It kind of feels like if you were to say, oh, I'm not counting any WWF title reigns in the WWE title reign because they're two different companies.
Right.
It's like, no, it's the same company. They got the F
changed
out
and
just changed to WWE. Like,
I didn't even think of that, but yeah. And here's a great example. The NWF title, the one that Inoki held for all those years, is very clearly not the IWGP title. It's not like, even though they were both top titles, they were not a direct continuation. They're not acknowledged as the same lineage or anything. But the WWF and the WWE and all the other name changes it's gone through over its 50 or however many years it's existed, it's very clear that's the same shit. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh man. Next question.
Yeah, so I'm sorry that I shit on your question, but I'm just not going to entertain that shit. Like, Taguchi's not even close to Liger's records.
Next question from Black Hawk in Discord says, realistically, could you see Taguchi getting another junior heavyweight title run?
Anything is always possible. The junior titles, sincerely not as prestigious or protected as, say, like the world title. At the same time, it's so unlikely. Like, I don't realistically think that's a possibility, but I can't say no because you just never know, but no.
Right. I mean, Doki is a champion right now with the way that they booked him this previous run, and, you know, shows had run a champion. So I feel like, yeah, the junior title is kind of a lower playing field. Like, anything could happen if they wanted to give him, you know, one more kind of goal watch kind of moment. Like, it wouldn't be super surprising, but yeah, I don't think from a booking standpoint that it's the wisest thing to do to be going back to a guy like Taguchi when we need to be getting the young guys in this division over. Well, speaking of young guys in division, next up, Extreme Robbie X sitting at 3-3 with 6 points. Night 4, defeating Kosei Fujita in 16:57 at night 5, dropping to Jun Kasai in 12:06. And night 7, rebounding with a victory over his stablemate Teton in 15:28.
Oh, you know what? I believe, in fact, I misspoke. So I said he beat Teton in the main event that night in KBS. That was the semi-main event. Yeah. It was the Fujita match that, so that actually lessened some of the impact of my argument earlier.
Yeah, the Vegeta match was a Cork and Hall main event. And man, this guy, Robbie X, is incredible. I feel like he's the one of the guys that's going out there killing it every night. This main event in Corkin, the crowd was obviously there was some Vegeta chants, but I feel like the crowd was really into Robbie, want to see him win. And I feel like this whole tournament, he's been super over. The Teton semi-main event, I felt like he was super over. The crowd wanted to see him win. And yeah, he's just going out there every night. Big moves, high flips, high intensity, having to fight through the black eye that he got on night 1 from Nick Wayne, and kind of adding that into the story of his matches. This guy is great. He's been like the savior of this tournament for me, because every night he's going out there and having a great match.
Yeah, I didn't even mention this, but the damn it, I had a really good thought about the about the Taguchi versus Fujita match, but I can't recall what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me. It doesn't matter. With Robbie X, right? The thing here for me is that earlier I talked about how there's not like a standout guy. That's not entirely true. Robbie X, as of right now, and I feel like it's your position as well, that he is the standout performer. Mm-hmm. I think when I say there's not a true standout guy, it's not me saying that his performances and matches aren't up to snuff. They're probably the best in the tournament, or 1A, 1B sort of situation, maybe with Francesco Akira, I don't know. But right now, the company is not fully invested in him. Now, it's pretty clear that they see something in him coming off of this title run. They're giving him some major wins. They're kind of kicking the tires. I'm sure they can't ignore the reactions that he's getting. So I do have the feeling that there is probably a bigger push down the line, but this year is not his tournament. And he's sort of like, we're going to give you a couple big wins to establish you, and you're going to go out of your way to make yourself mean something. But he's not a guy that the company is going to fully, get behind, strap the rocket to him. I don't even think he'll be in contention for the playoffs when it's all said and done. And that's a little bit of a disappointment, because I do think he's carrying the tournament.
Yeah, and again, two very important wins for him this week. He beat Fujita, he beat Teton. Those are two very important wins in this block. Two guys that, Teton's sitting at the top. Fujita's a guy people think's getting through. So, he had 3 more matches left. If he can manage to get to 6-3, he's in a very comfortable spot where he could get through. Even if he gets to 5-4 and drops 1 more and wins 2 more, I still think with that tiebreak over Teton, we expect Teton to be losing as well. Like, I think there is a chance for Robbie X to get into that A2 spot.
There's a chance. I almost feel like if it happens, it would be them calling an audible more so than anything else. But I don't see it. I see him as being somebody that they're paying respect to and giving him a much improved record and a meaning. I think those big wins, what that screams to me is when a guy beats a big name or 2 big names, and they're very much an underdog in terms of making it all the way through, they're just not going to wind up in the position to get those tiebreakers. They're going to fumble on the 1 yard line and start eating some some losses to lesser talent down the stretch. We see this happen in Gato's tournaments all the time. Guys that pick up upset wins, you think they're kind of playing a spoiler. They're not. They're just sort of like evening out the scores, getting a little bit of a boost. And then they're going to lose to guys that are like kind of more on their hierarchy level in terms of the kayfabe. And that's okay. Like, I think he's the one guy that is like making the most out of the tournament. I'm seeing people basically saying that they feel he has secretly been the best junior wrestler in the world for several years. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that position, but there's no doubting that today, right now, May 26, 2026, that he's on the short list of the best junior wrestlers. And we all know that the small guys are usually historically they're the best, in terms of like technical ability. So he's one of the best wrestlers in the world right now.
Yeah, without a doubt, for sure. And the best guy in this tournament. He's the MVP to me of this block and of the whole tournament. Like, again, he's going out there and having the excellent matches every night, having the performances you want to see in a tournament like this. And I feel like, his stock has definitely risen, even just within this tournament, in the crowd reactions that he's getting every night. They've been in different cities, and he's still getting these big, huge reactions. The crowds are dazzled by his high-flying technique. So, he's definitely coming out of this thing a star.
And that's a situation where you look at his tag team with Ishimori. They talk about Ishimori being like one of these, three pillars from the past, most recent generation. And then you look at like, say, Fujita and Eagles. You also look at like Francesco Epicura and TJP, and they've had a lot of these mentor-mentee tag team situations in the junior division the past few years. They've done a fantastic job spinning off the under guy into a main player role coming out of those tag teams. And this one happened within just like a year, basically from November to November. Here's this guy that like people were talking shit, bro. They didn't want him to like legitimately be signed to the company. And I wonder how many of those same people are even watching right now, but he's the standout. And he's great. And I've really enjoyed literally every single one of his matches. I think he's going to be the MVP when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Def Train 720 says, is Robbie X the most over gaijin in BOSJ in years?
It's a good question. I don't know that I don't know. It's hard to say because like we kind of forget, but like someone like Alex Zane was like
the sauce,
like the sauce was fucking insanely over. It's how over was who's the guy everyone says I look like?
Like Speedball,
yeah. Like how over was Speedball during his run? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of hard to say. There's been even that year when the TNA guys came in,
Ace Austin and Chris Bay.
Yeah, and Ace Austin and Chris Bay were both getting incredible react. Especially Ace Austin was like getting over. There's guys who are like not on the roster who've come in that were foreigners and have made an impact. It's just they don't stick around long term to like reap the benefits.
Yeah.
But you know what? If we're talking foreigners who are actively signed or actively part of the roster, you might have an argument there.
Yeah, probably best since like Osprey. Probably.
Possibly. Like, I'm trying, on the top of my head, I'm trying to think, like, the only name that like consistently pops up I'm thinking of is like Robbie Eagles. And as much as I love Robbie and he gets good reactions, I can't recall a time when, you know, on a tour, like on a Super Junior tour, where the crowd seemed this rabid for him necessarily, you know?
Yeah. Robbie gets, you know, very good reactions every night. It's kind of what you expect, but Robbie X is like, it's like this rabid, like, the crowd is like living and dying. They want him to win. They want to see him go forward. It's kind of like this next level reaction he's getting.
You know, one thing I will say, we focused on Nick Wayne for so long. I feel like that's the thing that he is one of the biggest things he's missing. I know people are always like, slow down, kid. You need to learn how to sell, blah, blah, blah. I think he's good at emoting. I think he's good at body language. I don't think he's good right now at letting the moment rest to get the sympathy for Robbie X is.
Yes.
And Robbie X is just as athletic as him and does just as much high flying, maybe even more.
More, I would say more.
But when Robbie is in trouble, you know it, the crowd gets behind him, and his comebacks are so much better because of it. And then because no one believes he's going to win, they're living and breathe. It's the Ishii thing, you know?
Yeah.
And Ishii's one of the greatest sellers of all time. And this is the value of being a good seller, is getting sympathy from the audience.
Yeah, and I think, you know, he also had, you know, kind of the cheat card with the black eye, and he did an excellent job selling that eye throughout the whole tournament. It's the little in between, it's kind of touching in between, like, he did such a good job.
Not shying away from people working it, making it the focal point. Bro, there's nothing I love, bro. It's one of my favorite things in pro wrestling. Like that match between Bayley and Sasha Banks, where I think Bayley had the broken hand. They're slamming it in the thing, and it's in the ring post. There's a famous match from one of the junior tournaments from New Japan back in the 80s where it's Takada and I forget who it is, but it's called the hand match because one of their hands were broken. And I think it's Hase. I could be wrong, but they're killing the hand's legitimate. Like, it was legitimately broken, but you know how New Japan is. Like, they still send the guys out there.
Yeah.
And it's nasty, the work that they're doing. And this guy has not shied away from it. He's made it the focal point of his stories, and it's added so much to it.
Yeah. Well, up next, let's talk about the Japanese young punk, Kosei Vegeta, also sitting at 6 points. Night 4, losing to Robbie X. Night 5, losing to Master Wato. And then coming back with a win on Night 7 over Ryusuke Taguchi.
I do understand a little bit what the aim is here, because last year he was the winner. He's had some up and down booking, but everyone kind of sees him as being the most likely winner. So Ghetto's going to ghetto, and he's going to, I'm going to skirt your expectations, have this guy work from underneath and come back roaring. Because the idea is the fans they get disappointed when he loses, and then they get invested. It's like what he did with Naito all the time in all those G1s. Mm-hmm. The problem is, I don't think he does have you know what? I remember what I was going to say about Fujita. He's been getting mixed reactions. You talked about how like he was kind of getting out cheered by Robbie X. Mm-hmm. He kind of worked quasi heel against Taguchi and was getting some boos, and he's not getting the level of reaction that we're accustomed to seeing from him. I think part of this is the failures at going for the title. And, you know, when you don't strike when the iron's hot, sometimes you miss the moment. I don't think that it's totally past, but he's clearly not at his hottest right now. With that being said, I still think Fujita is standing out. He's not the top of the block. He's wrestling really, really well. He's had some of the best matches in the tournament, both with Robbie X and Master Wato. Low key, could he still, when it's all said and done, pull out like an MVP level performance and kind of get past some of the other guys? He could, but there just isn't that excitement behind his ascension the way you want it to be. And I feel like they should have pushed him out the gate. He should have had Taguchi's booking.
Right. And I feel like right now the guy that like the internet is like more excited, I feel like, than the domestic crowd for his push. I feel like there's a lot of people who really enjoy him and really want to see him get over. But it doesn't seem to equal to what's happening in the building and with the crowds. And yeah, he's getting mixed reactions some nights and, getting out cheered by certain people. And like you said, I feel like, last year was the year where he kind of stumbled through the tournament. You mentioned, he got to the semifinals at like 5-4 and went on and won the tournament. And so to me, that's kind of, all right, that was he kind of slipped through, kind of got lucky and right time, right place kind of moment. And I feel like now they should have carried through the momentum from last year to this year. Like, all right, he won the Super Juniors last year. He's clearly one of the best juniors on the roster. He's a guy that, you mentioned earlier, you want to see somebody go 7-2. Like, I feel like this could have been a great year to follow up and have him be that 7-2 guy, have him, clean out this block and be like, yeah, this was the former winner from last year. He's continued to improve throughout the year. He should have been the dominant for sure. He's going to be A1 because he's 7-2, and everybody else is fighting for that A2 spot.
I agree. And another thing with all of that is this is very indicative of the criticisms that people have about the dojo system. And Fujita is a guy that was fast-tracked by their standards. Mm-hmm. He was moved into TMDK as like the first guy of this new school of marrying some of the young lions to a faction. He was the first guy that really did that. And then he didn't even go on a full excursion. He worked, some dates for a few months out in Australia, but he was still kind of coming back and forth. And then they graduated him fairly quickly. And they're still dragging their feet and taking too long to coronate him, especially I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but the junior division right now is like a mini version, derogatory because it's mini. It's a mini version of what has happened in the past couple of years with the heavyweight division, where it's like all these stars started leaving and they didn't have the right Reiwa guys ready to go. They were actually afforded a little bit more grace with the junior division because less of a market for those guys to go out, venture, and they had a little bit more equity built in with some of the Reiwa guys like Fujita, and they still dragged their feet. And now they're finding themselves in a similar position to like when Okada left, because Hiromu essentially is the junior equivalent. It's not quite the same thing, but of like Okada leaving sort of unexpectedly. And they don't have Fujita, aka Suji, ready to go. And it's kind of disappointing. And you would hope that they would rectify it by lighting a fire under the guy and making him look strong. I'm not saying he shouldn't be taking losses. I'm not saying that, he can't have struggles. But at the end of the day, he should have a dominant tournament. If your aim, and this is only if your aim is really, we want to go with him, and it should be, he should go like 7-2.
Yeah.
Minimum.
I don't think he's going to look good banana peeling again into the semifinals at 5-4. You can't do that.
Especially since the story is that Doki was unwilling to even compete in the tournament and we're looking for salvation in the division. How can he be the salvation of the division if he's going, 3-3 this deep in the tournament and with just one more loss, literally just one more loss.
Right.
He's on the bubble again.
Yeah, he can't put away Master Wato, but we want him to be the guy that's going to take out Doki. So
last year in the G1, Zach got super dominant booking and locked up his play-in spot before the couple final nights of the G1. That's the kind of thing you should be doing with somebody in this tournament. Mm-hmm. If not Fujita, whoever else it is that you think should be inheriting things. But like, it's pretty clear that Desperado and Fujita, Desperado and Ishimori, they're still around. They still have the goods. but they've done everything there is to do, and there's a short lifespan on juniors, and they need someone else. And this booking doesn't tell me that they have the faith in anybody to do that.
Yeah. Well, up next, somebody else sitting at 6 points, the Crown of Fire, Francesco Akira. Night 4, losing to Wato in 11:09, and then coming back with 2 wins. Night 5, defeating Valiente Jr., 9:34, and then night 7, defeating Daiki Nagai in 13:15.
You can kind of copy and paste a lot of the complaints that I had about Fujita and the creative behind how he's being booked to Akira. I think a lot of the reasons might be the same, because I still kind of think that they're probably the 2 most likely guys to go through. But where there is a difference, Francesco Akira is a heel, and he is getting all the heat he possibly can, and he's making things personal with everybody and just being the hardest motherfucker in the tournament right now.
Yeah.
And for a guy his size, you wouldn't expect that to be the case, but like, he is, what's his nickname?
Crown of Fire.
Crown of Fire. Like, that's perfectly fitting. What was he before? Was it like the Spitball or something?
Yeah, it was something fire. I forget what it was before. Yeah.
Fireball Kid.
I think it was a Fireball or something. Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
But I think that he just fucking rules. I think he's in a similar level of performance match to match as Fujita. Not every single match has been blow away, but I think he's been more consistent. The match that he had the first night with Fujita, I still think that's the best match of the tournament for both guys. And you sort of got the feeling coming off that, okay, these guys mean fucking business. They're about to run the table, and it just hasn't happened. Now, maybe they're both kind of holding back a little bit because they know they're going to get, some big opportunities down the stretch. But I haven't really looked at that full schedule. I don't know what that looks like for them. But if I had to take one of the 2 guys right now, I think I would take Francesco Akira in terms of who I like better in the tournament. He has not had the same level of peaks consistently as Fujita, but he doesn't have the lows Fujita has. He's just really good every night, and the stuff he's doing is new, fun, nasty. He's just being fucking mean and nasty to people, and it's been interesting.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you of kind of the similar complaints. And yeah, I feel like this guy coming back from the injury, rejoining with United Empire, turning heel, kind of this new edge and attitude he's shown. I feel like he was prime for a big push and should have been a guy that, again, should have been a world beater in this block and not been struggling so much, and kind of had some losses where, like, really, he lost to this person. But he's probably a guy that is going to bounce back this next week and be in contention to getting through. But yeah, he's been very solid, and like I mentioned earlier, he has Zane J seconding him also in the match, kind of helping him get some of the wins. But yeah, he's looked very, very good. I really enjoyed the Daiki Nagai match. Daiki, like we mentioned, has been getting pretty much like 5-minute matches, but he got a little bit more time here considering it was just a block night card. And
I saw people complaining about that. They were like, there's no reason Francesco Akira should have gone. It reminded me of when Kenny Omega gave time to
Alan Angels.
To Alan Angels. They were pissed that he didn't put Daiki Nagai away in 5 minutes. But I don't know. I was just glad they gave the kid the reps,
Yeah, and the story of the match was Akira underestimated Daiki Nagai, and it seemed like Akira had Nagai scouted because, Nagai was doing the hot start every match, and Akira kind of caught that at the beginning and was able to kind of get control of the match at first and kind of get cocky, underestimate Nagai. That opened the door for Nagai to get on the House of Fire, do all his, big planchas, flip dives, and kind of get control of the match, and then Akira had to, rally through and use his veteran, wiliness to get the advantage again and get the victory over the guy. So yeah, I thought it was a great story. That's the kind of
stories.
Moments. That's the kind of match you want the guy working. Like, the guy's not going to get better doing these 5-minute sprints against Taguchi and Valiente and all. Like, he needs more in-ring bell time against guys that are better than him. Exactly what we're talking about with Nick Wayne. Like, the guy needs to be in there in longer matches with guys that are better than him. So this was a perfect match for the guy. And Akira still looked really good and dominant and got the win. So I thought that was a really good matchup there.
Yeah, I mean, the only real player that he's faced so far is Kosei Fujita. So even though he's taken losses to guys that maybe he shouldn't have, it's what I talked about earlier, how it's very unlikely that those same guys will all be in play for a tiebreaker situation. And so it's probably going to become a thing where he starts picking up some victories over the bigger names in his block. Plus, the ace up his sleeves, the one thing you've talked about is he's got Zane J out there with him kind of running interference. It's been to some success. Sometimes it's sort of backfired, but I feel like it's going to start working the same way it worked for Callum Newman. And yeah.
Well, next up, as we get to the bottom of this block, we got Valiente Jr. sitting at 4 points. So he's 2-4. Night 4, losing to Teton. Night 5, losing to Akira. Night 6 got his second win of the tournament over Jun Kasai, and then night 7 dropping to Master Wato.
His inclusion in the tournament reminds me of was it Star Junior that was in this tournament years back, or was it Soberano? I feel like it was
Soberano.
I feel like Star Junior worked one of these tournaments.
Maybe I don't know. So I know for sure Soberano.
He was doing all those torneos.
I think you're talking about Soberano.
Okay, maybe it was Soberano, but I'm going to say it's Star Junior. But, you know, oftentimes when they bring over outsiders from a particular promotion, it's not uncommon for them to bring in the established guy that we're going to push hard, and then we're going to bring in the youngster who can, you know, get reps and eat pins. That's sort of what Valiente is here to do. Now, in situations like this, you do want to see that person like really shine. I think Valiente has shown, obviously athletically, he's very, you know, he has a lot of upside, a lot of potential. He is still extremely green. And one of the things for a luchador coming over to work this kind of tournament with international and pro resu talent, he's never worked with this type of style. And it is such a different style from Lucha Libre. It is a skill set that you kind of have to acquire, just like most of the pro resu guys extremely struggle going to Mexico. So I don't think we've seen the best of him necessarily. Obviously, the knee injury was very unfortunate, kind of hampered, and probably is affecting a lot of his tournament. For him, I think this is essentially primarily just a really good learning experience, but he's not a guy right now that I'm looking out for top end performances, great matches, or any sort of even, you know, I don't know what the word is, but like investment into his story arc. It just isn't there. He's kind of just a guy here to learn.
Yeah, you know, he did look very good on Fantastica Mania, but again, he was wrestling people he was familiar with and wrestling other luchadors. And yeah, now we're kind of seeing a little bit of the holes in his games, and like his movements are not as fluid and crisp when he's working in there against the non-luchador guys. I mean, he's still doing some cool stuff, but like you're saying, he's not having these blow-away, standout matches and looking like the next kind of, you know, top lucha star that could come in and be the guy that comes in every year, like a Dragon Lee or like a Volador or like Teton is right now. So yeah, he's a young guy. He's learning. It's a good experience for him. But overall, yeah, he hasn't been a standout in the block. He's just kind of almost like a pin eater kind of guy, and I don't expect him to get many more wins. He's already at 2-4. I don't see him getting to that 5-4 spot. So he'll probably eat a few more losses. Probably end up being like 3-6.
Star Junior has never competed in the best of the Super Juniors.
I knew it was Soberano.
Yeah, but I want to say it's Star Junior because that's what it is in my mind.
Well, let's talk about the last guy in the block here. Young Lion, Daiki Nagai, 0-6, 0 points. Night 4, losing to Jun Kasai. Night 5, losing to Nick Wayne. Night 7, losing to Francesco Akira.
We've already, for the sake of time, I already kind of gave some of my thoughts about him working his ass off and the effort he's putting in. So I felt like we almost kind of gave a good quasi review earlier in the show. The one thing I do like that I haven't mentioned, I like the way he's starting every match where he's just fucking diving on bitches.
I love it. Hot start, boom, big, tope con hilo. This man's doing, planchas, big suicide dives.
Right now, Daiki Nagai is giving me the energy of Ace, and he can't even actually be the Ace. But of all the young lions, probably since the inception of this show, I don't know that we've ever seen, and this is such high praise, but I don't know that I've ever seen anybody that as a lion that I'm just like, yeah, they're going to be the top guy of whatever it is they're doing. Mm-hmm. You just never can really fully say that, but Daiki Nagai gives that energy so much so that when we did the preview, we were like, they won't do this, but what if they decided?
Yeah.
What if, and people from the company are probably listening, being like, these fucking idiots, these fucking marks. There's no way they're going to do that. And of course they're not, because they're, New Japan committee, booking team, they're cowards.
Right. But the status quo, young lion loses everything.
And what we're looking for here, and I guess we're going to do a preview here in a little bit, but he's got to win one of these matches. Maybe he doesn't, but I would love it. But there's not much more to say there. I just think he's making the most out of the tournament. And usually when guys are in a super junior as lions, they tend to go on excursion fairly quickly after that.
Yeah. So yeah, he's been fun to watch. And so yeah, looking forward to seeing what the rest of his week looks like and seeing if he's going to be able to hit that flying headbutt. Well, let's jump over to the B block now, where each guy had 2 sets of matches here. So this block might go a little bit faster. Plus, I really don't love this block, so I don't really have a lot to say. I
don't have a lot to say either. It's the B block is significantly worse than the A block, and honestly, we did a good job talking about a lot of this stuff earlier. So
yeah. So we'll start up with Daisuke Sasaki. He's 3-2. He's 6 points. Night 4, dropping to Taiji Ishimori in 11:36, and night 6, dropping to Jacob Austin Young in 6:58. So Daisuke starting off hot and then eating 2 losses in a row here.
Yeah. I think that's a great summary of what happened here. Is he started out super hot. Now he's starting to eat losses. It's not unlike that year when Blake Christian won 3 in a row and people were fucking losing their shit, I don't think Daisuke's been terrible. He's limited in much the same way that Jun Kasai is kind of limited, but there's only so much room for, the hardcore scuzzy stuff. He's kind of leaning into it a little bit, but, most of the wins he's getting are kind of coming by cheap, underhanded, low blow tactics. And then eventually one thing that they have done well is establish the crossface as a legitimate finisher that can beat people, starting with that first night with Desperado. But I think that Desperado match probably, correct me if I'm wrong, is probably the best match he's had in the tournament.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he's just kind of there. The most interesting thing about him is the fact that it's been a 14-year gap between his last appearance in a Super Junior, and it's the longest gap of anybody's tournament participation.
Yeah.
That we know of. Unless, I don't know. They don't count top of the Super Junior, so I don't know if that's totally accurate.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing with him is kind of similar to what I was saying with Kasai, where I feel a lot of the energy that he brings to the table kind of gets watered down because he's a black shirt wearing guy that's, cheating and ref bump shenanigans. It's like, we got Sho in this tournament. We got Kanemaru in this tournament. We're so used to the House of Torture style and shenanigans that happen. Like, what he brings doesn't feel that special or that different. And he's not really having any blowaway matches. And the thing is, he does do some cool stuff in between some of his shenanigans that he does. So I feel like he can go a little bit more than he's actually showing. But I think he's so much into this, scummer death matchy kind of gimmick that he's not getting to highlight that kind of stuff.
He's got a lot of miles on his body. I've never been the biggest fan of his, but apparently back in his DDT days, during his prime, there's a reason why he's won every single title in that company multiple times. And, he's one of those guys that was having great matches with Kota Ibushi and Konosuke Takeshita and, Endo and different people like that, Harashima. But from my understanding is like, yes, he can go more than what he is, but he's a guy that usually you're counting on 1 to 2 really great performances per year. And the rest of the time, not so much. Or at least that's what I've heard. I can't speak from firsthand knowledge because DDT is not my forte.
Yeah. So he's just kind of he's been fine in the tournament, and he'll probably end up being pretty even towards the end. I don't see him advancing.
I thought, and I hate to say this, but I thought the Jacob Austin for a straight match, not one of these wacky quick roll ups, or I thought the Jacob Austin Young match was one of the, I can't say worst, although it's in the conversation, but it's one of the more disappointing matches. Not that I had super high expectations, but it's not great.
Yeah. So next guy up, El Desperado, also sitting at 3-2 with 6 points. So night 4, Despy defeated Heyo in 12-16, and then night 6 defeating Sho in 10-21. So kind of the opposite of Sasaki, where he was coming in with some losses and then picked up 2 wins.
Well, in the first week, he had a really strong week. That match with Ishimori in particular, we know those guys, even though it's been done to death, that match was really awesome. And then the match with Robbie Eagles was standout. Actually, that was this, that would fall under what we're reviewing, right?
What, the Eagles match?
Yeah.
No, that was last week.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. 14, 16, 17. Sorry. So he had a really, really, really great first week, but he was also working Ishimori and Eagles. And now that he's in there with like Sho and Heyo and even like the Daisuke Sasaki match, like those matches when he's working guys that are like maybe a little beneath his stature, he's kind of working like it. And in years past, when Desperado was this hungry, desperate guy to get out of Hiromu's shadow, that wasn't, I don't want to like rewrite history and be like, oh, he was, always blow away. But there's been quite a few tournaments that we've talked about him being the overall MVP, most reliable guy. Right now, he's not wrestling like it. And it's probably because he's not on track to be the winner of this tournament, really.
Yeah, I mean, night in, night out, he's having, good to very good matches. And like you mentioned last week, that the Eagles match kind of lend more to the great territory. And also, I think he's a guy that everybody has circled as somebody that has high potential to get into the semifinals. And sitting at 3-2, obviously there's a log jam right now of guys with 6 points, but I do expect him to probably get to closer to that 6-3 spot. And he's probably going to be a guy that's getting through, especially for people who think that, a Kasai Despy semifinal final match is on the table.
Well, they've always said they're never going to wrestle again, but maybe a tournament situation changes that. But I also think that part of their agreement is no death matches. And maybe this is like, oh, it's not a death match. It's a one-on-one, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, nothing else there on Desperado. So next up, 6 points is Sho. Night 4, he lost to Yo by disqualification in 13-22.
Via the Eddie Guerrero spot.
Yeah.
Gag.
And then night 6, losing to Desperado.
Here's what didn't make sense about that, right? During the Robbie X versus Jun Kasai match, the referee started a pinfall count and then looked over and saw the ladder and wouldn't count the pin because he didn't see it, but he's like, obviously something happened here. I can't count this. You turn around in this match and it's like the referee didn't see the illegal object actually used, but just assumes that it was used and disqualifies the guy. And it's like, you can't call something you didn't fucking see, bro. Like,
right. And that finish, and last week I think there was a DQ finish also. That opens up like this whole Pandora's box of like, all right, why isn't Hasatori getting DQ'd every night then? Because it's the same thing. Like, you clearly hear or see them have a weapon, or some shenanigans happened. Why are you not, DQing these guys every night then? Why is it only in this certain context you want to tell this specific story that you're doing a DQ? It makes everything else that they've done so stupid.
With that being said, Show is just basically doing what Show does, scummy matches, shenanigans, brawling on the outside. But the big thing here is him calling in for either the wrench or going underneath the ring and grabbing the metal black. I'm going to call it cookie sheet because I don't know what the fuck it is, but and sometimes, and it's his undoing. Sometimes it wins him matches. Sometimes it leads to him losing. The good thing here is when he first joined House of Torture, those first couple of years, he was like dominating blocks, doing this shit, and you could always kind of count on him like potentially being one of the final guys. He was like basically junior evil at that point.
Which in this tournament, he's coming out with the evil wig in gear.
Now they could still potentially, I'm not discounting the idea that he couldn't still make it to the playoffs potentially, but he is taking losses. And I get the feeling that like with Doki as champion, they're not going to tell that story where it's like, oh, he's going to be, oh, you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. Was crazy. Yeah.
You hear that?
Yeah. Sounds like Thursday night over there.
Thursday night? What do you mean?
Thunder.
Oh my God. Yeah, I just with Doki being the champion, I don't think they're going to tell the story of him like trying to win it all, really being actually in play. So it's not like he is dominating the block. He's just kind of there. I can see him taking quite a few losses, even though he's still kind of quote unquote strong or whatever. Yeah,
I expect him to eat some losses and might be a spoiler kind of guy, but I don't see him getting through. But man, that Yo match, it was not great. And these guys continue to have bad singles matches against each other. It's astonishing.
Sho in a way kind of reminds me a little bit of junior version of Sonata, a guy who they gave the belt to, gave him a trial run. He entered a few years into this tournament as the champion, and now he's the mouthpiece for Doki. He's his hype man and someone that you could never really realistically see going back to that title. And if you would have told me in 2019 that this was a real possibility, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have, if you could have given me like I could place a bet and you could give me monster odds on it that this guy was going to be like one of the greatest juniors in the history of the company, I would have placed that bet all day and I would have lost.
Yeah. In 2019, that seemed like easy money.
Yeah. So with that being said, though, the fact that he's not getting very many main events and he's not a focal point, he's kind of middle of the road, scummy House of Torture guy. It's fine for me, whatever. Like, I've made peace with it. Like, obviously I don't like it. For me, the match of his that I liked the most this tournament was the Kanemaru match.
Yeah. Up next, his aforementioned tag team partner, Yo, who's also 3-2 with 6 points. So I'm going to mention night 4, Yo defeated Sho with the Eddie Guerrero spot by disqualification. Then night 6, he ate a loss to Robbie Eagles.
Yeah, the Robbie Eagles match was sort of hearkening back to some of the better performances from a guy like Yo, but those are so few and far between.
But even there was still a lot of kind of funny haha in the first half of that match until they finally decided to turn it up.
It felt like it took a while to actually get to where it was going. He's almost kind of like Seth Rollins in a way. We always remember we used to when he would start doing the stomp, we used to be like, burn it down. But what I mean by that specifically about him being like Seth Rollins is he is also a practitioner of the what is it called?
Falcon Arrow.
The Falcon Arrow. And much like Seth Rollins, you kind of know that his matches are not turning up until the Falcon Arrow actually gets hit. It's kind of what Yo's matches are like a little bit as well, except for, believe it or not, he doesn't have the ability to turn it up even to the same, not to the level that Rollins can. And I'm not even a huge Rollins fan, but it's night and day. I don't love the Playboy Bunny, whatever the fuck this gimmick thing is.
Yeah, his gear is awful. His music, like, why did he change his music? That's a generic beat kind of thing. That's awful.
The kissing, I don't know, bro. It's just, none of this is for me,
Right. Like, we need to make some trades. Like, we need to get Yo over to DDT. Because I feel like he has strong DDT energy and would do very well in that promotion.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have much more to say here. Like, that's about it.
Yeah.
Like, Yo sucks. Yo is still a hoe.
Yes. Oh, man. Well, up next, the last guy that's sitting at 6 points, the Bone Soldier, Taiji Ishimori. So he's reeling off 2 wins in a row here, defeating Daisuke Sasaki on night 4 and night 6, defeating longtime rival Yoshinobu Kanemaru.
Yeah, Kanemaru, like so many names to remember in this review. Fuck. Taguchi, his matches are being kept extremely relatively short. So, we saw Ishimori pick up only his second ever singles victory out of like a 16 match series or whatever the number is. But their feud is primarily a Noah thing. So it only kind of bled over to New Japan, and it was usually just one-off tournament matches year over year where Kanemaru kept beating him. But, he beat him fairly quickly, which is probably what you want out of Kanemaru at this point. And then it kind of just firmly established like Ishimori, even though he's kind of considered a little bit seasoned, he's just on a much higher level at this point than Kanemaru is. And overall, I think that he may be right now, Taiji Ishimori, the most consistent high performer in the B block. Like the one guy you can count on to have mostly really great matches night over night.
Yeah, and there has been a narrative on commentary that Charlton has been pushing. He's a guy that he's one of the big three. He's been to finals, but he has not won the big one. And
right.
That has me thinking, this kind of renewed energy and this push Robbie X and the way he's been performing, is he in line to get to the finals and finally win a Super Juniors?
Yeah, well, I mean, even though I talked about, the fact that down the line, if this stuff continues with Robbie X, there's a bright future there. But the one guy that they have consistently, I don't know the full business metrics of New Japan, but time and time again, they have relied on Ishimori to carry the division, carry the title, work main events, work major matches on big shows in times where I don't know that he was always consistently connecting with this show in terms of our fandom or even the broader Western audience, but they still always go with the guy. And you can't deny that he's not still great in ring. He is. And you can't deny that he's got to be moving some sort of metrics business wise within Japan. Otherwise, there wouldn't be this investment and reaction to him from the live audience. But yeah, he has never won this tournament. Even though he's been the face of like the championship, he has always been in the shadow of both Desperado and Hiromu. And you are still kind of wondering like, okay, are they going to give him like a last accolade? And is he potentially going to, kind of step out and sort of be the bridge for some of these Reiwa guys? Because Doki clearly is not going to be it.
Yeah, I think if you want to have a guy where it's an established guy that these young guys chase, I think Ishimori is a good guy for that spot. And you could have guys like Fujita and Akira chasing him, and also there's obviously a story there with his partner Robbie X potentially challenging him. So I think there's a lot of compelling things you could do with Ishimori. I don't know if that is the most exciting option to go with when there are so many other young guys you want to get over.
But Jeremy, how often has that been the case where we're like, could go with Ishimori? It's not the most exciting thing. And then how often do they actually still do that? Like, that's what I was talking about, where it's like, yeah, he's ran with that title a fuck ton when you weren't necessarily expecting him to.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I could easily see him being a guy that's going to have a good solid week, good last week, and potentially be 6-3. Maybe he doesn't get through on tiebreakers, but I think he'll definitely be toward the top of the block.
You know, like with Fujita, I talked about earlier, like guys having mentor tag team partners. It's a little bit different. This is no disrespect to Robbie Eagles, but the one time they gave him the title was during pandemic era, and they've never really gone back to him in full steam that same way since then. And so Fujita is already, he's not quite there yet, but we're getting to the point where it's like, you know, every group sort of usually has like a junior ace, like the head junior guy that you kind of count on to be the title contender. It seems like for a while that was Eagles and TMDK, but Fujita's probably going to surpass him in terms of the hierarchy, not in terms of anything else, but he's going to be kind of seen as like the de facto junior guy for TMDK. But right now, as good as Robbie X is and how popular he's getting, he's not currently positioned to do that to Ishimori. And Ishimori has always been booked way higher up in the division than, say, like a guy like Eagles. So getting past him is a much bigger hurdle than passing up Eagles was for Fujita. For that reason, they are heating up some of these different factions, and Unbound Company is one of them that's been wrapped up in this resurgence. You kind of have to figure that Ishimori has to benefit probably from the loyalty of sticking around and just being in the right group and being presented as like the de facto guy. Like, he's not in a position like Desperado to potentially like just take a seat back. He kind of does need to be in the mix right now with guys like Akira and Fujita.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of Robbie Eagles, he's the next guy we'll talk about here. He's sitting 2-3 with 4 points. Night 4, losing to Kanemaru in 6:42. And night 6, coming back with a victory over Yo. We talked about earlier, 18:37.
You know, this is something where it's like, it's hard for me to, I talked about like the narrative thing. You want to see like what some of these guys' motivations and stories are. And with Robbie, every tournament, it's like when he's given the opportunity to have great matches, he delivers and he has the great matches. But because they don't book him at the tip top of the division, then he's always counted on by creative to do these wacky fucking losses so that he's not, you know, so that he doesn't get into playoffs and so he doesn't go into finals. It happens every year. It's like when he's in there with the best guys and they give them time and he's in a semi or a main event, the match fucking rocks. Sometimes he wins and he'll have respectable point totals, but then he's doing shit like this Kanemaru loss just so that they can
even the points. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just juke the points. So he's not in play.
Yeah. That was a very disappointing loss. I was like, they can't have him go over Kanemaru. Like, I get it. They don't, for whatever reason, they don't want to push him to top level, but come on. Like,
bro, it happens every year with the Eagles, every single year. Like, he delivers, but the creative is just
right. I mean, he would be a guy that I'm pushing toward the top of the block every year. Like, he's that talented. Like, he should be a player every year of a threat to go into the finals. But
we sound like, you know, when fans like bring up excuses and cope for why their guy is losing.
Yeah.
We sound like that a little bit, but the reality is like, it's a worked sport. So he doesn't get to determine if he wins, guys. Like, it is the creative. Like, it sucks.
Right. I mean, you look at his in-ring, the bell to bell, the crowd reaction. You know, he's been learning more Japanese. He's been growing that crowd connection. And he's been a part of one of the most exciting divisions in New Japan the last couple of years with the tag team division, the junior tag division, of him and Fujita. Like, he's been a standout guy year after year in tag teams, in singles, whenever he gets opportunity. and they just don't go with him.
I think the most frustrating thing about it is like, I'm not advocating. I'm sure if he's listening, like, you know, I'm not advocating for him to be the very top guy that just is the central focal point of the junior division. I'm sure, you know, if he's listening, he's probably like, what the fuck? Of course I am. Like, that's, you know, but I understand that there's a lot of different players in the division, and there has been over the past, like, he's been in this tournament like 8 years. This is an ongoing thing. Where I think the frustration lies is them never having gone with him. And he's not in the same situation as Yo or Wato, where they're wildly inconsistent. You don't know what they're going to deliver night over night, you know, stuff like that. Eagles is like the most consistent guy in the company when it just comes to general ring performance, and he's capable of having the best matches in the company. And the fact that they have never chosen to really go with him, that's it's just the neverness of it. That's what sucks.
Yeah. And we've seen what happens where he can get in a big rivalry and get emotional. Like some of the stuff he's been doing in Australia, like you give him something to sink his teeth into, like he knocks out the park, and it elevates what he does in ring when there's a great story and rivalry behind what he's doing.
Yeah. So, you know, it is a little bit you're watching it and you're like, why 8 years? Why the fuck have we not even tried?
Right. Not even once. And, you know, other guys get rewarded for doing stuff like this guy came in through COVID. This guy could probably easily get signed somewhere else, and it's been sticking around with New Japan. Like, where's his reward? I know that if you're listening to this podcast, you probably listen to other Japanese New Japan podcasts and stuff like that. And it's not like we don't all have it's a tight knit community. We don't have the largest audiences or anything like that, you know, and each show probably performs to varying different sizes. Obviously we're the biggest and best. And then the rest of those guys like JCast and all them, they follow us, you know, they're down here. No, I'm just playing. They probably pull more than we do, but, honestly, they definitely do. The reason I brought that up though, is that Robbie is the only guy in the whole company who, you know, we're talking Western speakers, English speakers, but he's the only guy who has actively reached out to every single one of those media shows that exist, no matter the size, the audience, the content, and had kind words for them and done favors and, you know, come on each and every single one of our shows, not just once, but like multiple times. And it's because he's someone that is invested in expanding the audience. We've seen, you know, all the awareness that he's brought to the Australian indie scene while he's also continued his work in New Japan and doing his trainings abroad. And it's just like you said, the COVID stuff, this is one of the like most loyal soldiers they fucking have in the company. And one of the nicest guys that's reaching out to like be inclusive of fans. And I don't know. I don't want to make it sound like they treat him like shit. That's not the case. You know, he is a veteran that's respected and he's got his spot, but his spot should just be much higher. And the fact that they haven't kicked the tires on the guy one time, it's just fucking weird. You know, I mentioned all that Western outreach. I don't know if that even matters to the company. Honestly, that we're like second class citizens anyways. Yeah. It just kind of feel like he's trapping, like he's a good hand. And so, yeah, we have him around because he's good. And so, but we're never going to go with him. It's kind of like, you know, when the Radicals go to WWE or even when they're in WCW, like, yeah, these guys are really good workers or good hands, and we're never really going to push them to the top level.
Yeah. And I agree with that. The real crime here, though, is that it's just the junior division. And so while it is a deep and very competitive division, the leap to becoming the champion when you happen to be the best junior in the division, that's not that big a logic leap, you know?
Right. Yeah.
The idea of like pushing like La Parka into the main event, that's, you know, it's a little different, but it's not that big a jump. And the fact that I don't know why they just haven't done it, but it doesn't seem to me like they're doing that this year.
Yeah. Well, another guy that's sitting at 4 points is JAY Jacob Austin Young. So he's 2-3, reeled off 2 wins, night 4, defeating Kushida in 303, and then night 6 defeating Daisuke Sasaki in 658.
I got it. So I like Jacob Austin Young. I like a lot of the things that he does. He is a guy that right now I would consider, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way. I mean it based on where he's at in his career, his experience in the company. I think you could safely kind of consider him as a solid hand.
Mm-hmm.
But for a guy who's sort of been left off these tournaments, or at least last year, I can't remember, maybe it's been twice. He's never been part of it. It's been a lifelong dream. I know that he's not getting main event spots and he's usually at the bottom of the block cards, but he's not coming off to me night after night as a guy who is trying new things, experimenting, showing, greater levels of fire or doing anything outside of his comfort zone. His matches are very samey as to what we've seen from him in other single scenarios, and more importantly in like tag team matches, especially like road twos, where it's like he's got his shtick, he does it. Some of it's impressive, but it's not like the wildest stuff you'd ever seen. But that's sort of what you expect on a road two. But when you're in the Super Juniors and this is like your lifelong dream, you kind of expect like a Daiki Nagai sort of mentality of really, or like how Robbie X, these guys are doing something to really show. I don't think Jacob Austin Young is. I also think probably what's hurting it a little bit is the fact that he sort of does have to take a back seat to Fujita. So it's limited to how much they can even really elevate or push him right now. But his matches are, I know they're not getting the time, man, but he's not maximizing the minutes. And I feel like, I know we're just wrestling fans and I'm not trying, I understand it's different when you're a wrestler than how the critics might see things, but man, I would hate to be in a position where you waited for this your whole life and then you didn't do everything to really like make that tournament mean what it should be for you.
Yeah. And I feel like we've been very critical on Jacob Austin Young since he's been in New Japan. And I think a lot of those complaints kind of like resurfaced here. It was just very Jag energy. Like I feel like you could replace anybody with Jacob Austin Young and it probably could be better. It's coming off very bland, very generic. And again, I feel like Zane J has honestly been the most entertaining parts of his matches and the heat that Zane J's been getting when he's seconding this guy. And like you mentioned, yes, the matches aren't super long, but again, you put him, bell to bell with Daiki Nagai, like Daiki's going, Daiki's wrestling a guy who doesn't want to go back. And he's out there, flipping, giving his all. And yeah, Jacob Austin Young, it just kind of seems like play by numbers, kind of cookie cutter, my first heel wrestler kind of thing. And yeah, it's just like I said, Road 2 level, that's fine, but this is best of the Super Junior. And the whole story is he's snubbed and he should have been in it. But if he should have been in it, like you think he would have been from a, non-kayfabe perspective performing like he should be here. And then from a kayfabe perspective, you think they would give him a little bit more for a guy that was complaining about not being in the tournament.
Yeah. And one thing I will say, I know the way I kind of framed some of this, because I'm taking it away from just the creative. I'm talking about the performance side. And so being a little bit more critical, and I think some of the words I said were possibly a little harsh sounding. The one thing I will kind of backtrack on, I do think that there is a particular scenario that we might not be privy to that would conflict with my opinion and feeling on all this. And that would be if he's just doing his job. And what I mean by that is the type of match he's doing is what's being, I know they don't have quote unquote agents, but if they're telling him their expectations, hey, we only want you to do this, we only want you to go this long, and this is what we want out of you, then I can't totally, criticize that. And there's always the possibility that that is the case. But, you know, New Japan is a much more free environment than other places. And if everyone else is showing out, I don't know, where's that Shawn Michaels in you where you're like, fuck what you tell me. I'm taking the time I want. I'm going to do the spots I want.
Right. But I mean,
and I'm going to shine.
He's essentially the same level as, or supposed to be a little bit higher than Daiki Nagai. Like, they're telling me that like the young lion can do more than he can do.
Well, what I mean by that is like, what if they're telling Daiki, hey, every night you're going to go out, you're going to do this fireball attack and then show all this great fire and then ultimately lose. And you know how his is a template. So he's obviously following some sort of template. Maybe JAY is doing the same thing. And they're just like, yeah, we just want the basics out of you. You're just here to like have these basic matches. Well, you know, I could imagine if I was listening and you're like, you guys don't even fucking know I'm doing my job. They're happy with what I'm doing, you know? But from the fan perspective, it's like, bro, this is not the kind of like tournament performance that is going to turn you into a top guy. And if that's what you want, I almost say a little bit like, fuck what they want. Like, add some pizzazz and make yourself fucking shine. And like, you're going to, like, I think of guys who like when they weren't where they wanted to be in companies and they started just selling their fucking and stooging and
yeah,
you know, making the guys they wrestle look like $1 million. And then also when it's their time to shine, like just being kind of selfish. I look for that from a guy like him who is, you know, kind of pigeonholed into one specific space. And he's kind of lucky to even have that space. That's where you have to take some chances and try and stand out.
Yeah. He's just not doing that. And so, yeah, he did, you know, rebound with 2 wins here. I don't expect him to get many more wins, and will probably be in a similar spot towards the bottom of the block. So next up, also at 4 points, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, the heel master, night 4, defeating Robbie Eagles. Night 6, losing to Taiji Ishimori.
Through all these reviews, we've mentioned a lot about Kanemaru. I don't have much more to add. I will just say of all the cheating guys in the tournament, he's the funniest to me.
Yes.
And that's the case every year. So, you know, Kanemaru is what Kanemaru is. Like we've talked about it. I don't have much more to say, but I like his shit better than his counterpart Taguchi on the other side of things.
Yeah, and we talked about it in the preview. Yeah, Kanemaru is always entertaining every year. So yeah, he's been good, and honestly, don't expect him to get many more points here. Up next, also at 4 points, we got Heyo, 2 and 3. Night 4, dropping to El Desperado. Night 6, getting a win over Kushida.
So I didn't really get to talk a lot about Heyo last week. I don't have a ton of thoughts, but some of the things I will say, athletically, a level above maybe almost everybody in the tournament. Like he works at a speed and crispness that is very much the Dragon Gate Lucha Rezu style.
Yeah.
That when he is in the ring with some other juniors like Yo or even like Kushida or Desperado, his movements at this point are just light years. He moves in a way that is way different than all of them, and it puts them to shame. That being said, I really just don't dig the character, or it's not even really the character. The character's fine, but it's the zaniness. Like, I'm done with the puppets and fucking stuffed animals in my wrestling. And I understand domestically there are different types of wrestling fans, especially, you know, that are sort of into more of those like geeky, sort of like nerdy niche stuff kind of appeals. But for me, I just can't be bothered with the silly gaga haha. And then there's the kissing, which is like, we've seen that so many times in other tournaments, and every couple of years it seems to like ream its head up. And I mean, like, I don't know. I guess, you know, it's just not really like, I'm here to watch a simulated fight. Right.
Right.
And
yeah.
so I just don't love like that sort of physicality, or even the joking sort of bullshit that has been taking place a lot in this tournament. And unfortunately, as talented as Hyo is, he just kind of lives in that realm.
Yeah, and I think kind of similar criticism that I've had with some other kind of the outsiders is like, yes, because there is so much Gaga and light and pop, like he doesn't really stand out, and it comes off as another annoying thing in this tournament. Whereas if everybody else was serious and there was nobody else doing funny Gaga, his stuff would stand out a lot more. He would stand out more, but there is so much Gaga. I'm just like, it's, and again, like you mentioned, like his movements, like when he's actually wrestling and doing spots, I'm like, this guy, he's a super athlete.
Holy shit, he's special.
Yeah, and then he starts running around like a cat, being concerned about his stuffed leopard, and the whole thing with him in Kushida, where Kushida's attacking the leopard and it gets hung on the rope, and I don't know, it's just not for me.
But when you're listening to the show, you might disagree, and I think here's the beauty of pro wrestling is it can be a lot of different things to different people. And like, someone like, for instance, our social media manager, Emily, I haven't talked to her about it, but I could suspect that if she's seen Hyo, she probably loves him.
Yeah.
And for some fans, that more entertainment sort of side of things can be very appealing. But for me, I just want to see dudes fuck each other up in the ring and it be about winning a belt.
Right.
Like for me, it's not about comedy stories. It's like, I want to win a belt and I'm going to beat your ass to do it. I'm like, hell yeah, brother. That's what pro wrestling is, But
yeah.
Hyo is talking about turning the lions into little leopards or something. I don't know. In his backstage comments, and he's talking about he's going to kiss everybody to victory. And I'm like, all right, how can I invest in you? You're not serious.
Right. It kind of comes off almost like a parody of wrestling when it's like this comedic. And I get it, if guys want to have, find their yeet and have their comedy gimmick, whatever, but I don't know. It's best Super Juniors. I want to see the best juniors heavyweights having, the best matches, and he has a skill to have great matches, but he's hampered by this gimmick and having to run around like a leopard and do all the kissing and stuff. I don't know. It's just, obviously it's working in Dragon Gate, and it sounds like he's a top guy over there, but like,
oh, is he?
I don't know. It sounds like it, but
I wouldn't even know. Yeah, I could see how this could be marketable, this act that he has. I think that there is an audience for it, and it's just probably not like you and me, and that's totally fine. But it's also not like a top guy act. Even if it gets over and it, opens some doors for him, like typically in most cases, like that shit's not going to fly at the very top of the card when you're trying to draw real money, and have crowds attend. Maybe in DDT, stuff like that's worked, but it's not going to work in Dragon Gate.
Yeah. So, that's Hyo. Again, I don't really expect him to get many more points. He'll probably end up as a 5-4 guy to kind of give him a winning record there and send him back on his way. Then last but not least is a time splitter. Kushida 1-4, 2 points. Night 4, losing to Jacob Austin Young in 3:03. Night 6, losing to Hyo in 11:13.
I mean, Kushida has kind of just been Kushida, and not the cool, really good Kushida from years past, like the more recent post WWE Kushida. Still talented as hell. I loved the Robbie Eagles match on the first. I thought that match just didn't get enough attention. It was so fucking good. But he's at a certain stat. He's a veteran who is no longer respected as a top guy in the company, and he's there to have great matches, but also eat a lot of pinfalls to kind of even things out. And it is funny. He's the most he's got 2 belts. He's the most belted up dude in the fucking tournament, but he's also at the very bottom of these blocks. He'll be kind of like the Hantai version of Kanemaru, where it's like he might play spoiler to somebody down the road.
Yeah, again, all back to that hand, foot, and mouth disease. Ever since he got that, they were like, you know what,
bro? It's because he wrestles without his shoes on. How the fuck you think he got the hand, foot, and mouth disease in the first place?
They were like, yeah, we don't play that. Yeah, we can't trust you.
Yeah, you know the funny thing about this? I don't know how you get hand, foot, and mouth disease.
I don't know either.
I'm assuming it's because he didn't wrestle, or he wrestled barefoot, but like, I have no clue if that's even a way you can contract that disease. No idea.
Yeah. So yeah. He's that steady veteran hand that, is just gonna go out there, have good matches, but his days are done as a top guy.
Yeah, done.
Yeah. So yeah, he'll probably end up maybe 3-6. I have a hard time seeing him reel off 4 wins in a row. So we'll see. A couple of the questions here. So Fuse Shoulder 2780 says, who has been your favorite to watch in BOSJ so far?
Robbie X.
Yep, hands down Robbie X. Death Triangle 720. Of the matches we've seen so far, which one would you like to see in the near future involving the IWGP Junior title?
I think what he's asking is not like who you want to see wrestle Doki. I think he's saying like, what match in the future do you want to see for the title?
Yeah, I think based off so for example, like I would go like Robbie X and Fujita. Like that's a title match I would want to see.
I would say Fujita and Francesco Akira, because I think that those guys are like magic.
Yeah, that would be great too. He also asked, with BOSJ format beginning of all tournament matches and then switching to preview matches, do you think we'll get the same format for this year's G1?
It's not impossible, because the first night in America, they are having an entire block night, but they don't typically do that. And I feel like they have a longer tour with more nights, and the best way to do that is to, split the A and B block nights, or however many blocks we're going to have this year. I don't know. But I don't anticipate them doing that, because it will reduce the amount of shows they are able to draw to, and it's their biggest tour of the year.
Right, and based on the dates, it seems like it's a normal full G1 tour, and they did kind of tease that there might be some like junior stuff on the undercard, so they might do like what they did in Dallas a couple years ago, where there is like some undercard matches, and maybe they'll do like a junior title match, junior tag title match, do some other kind of big matches with non-heavyweights, and then you get into your block matches.
Bro, New Japan used to do that for the G1. I know they also had shorter tournaments, but yeah, they used to do that. And for Super Juniors too, they used to have this stuff, especially like the finals be supported by, big title matches and even other tournaments and stuff.
Yeah. Doc says, who's a better kisser, Heyo or Yo?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on that one. Let's question 7252. Would you like to see NJPW run more KBS Hall shows in the future for Road 2 shows or during a special tournament event?
I mean, sure. I mean, I like the atmosphere. I didn't watch a lot of Noah growing up, so it's not like I have this, this thing with KBS Hall, or like, Dragon Gates run that building. I don't know. It's fine. It's cool. It is different, but it's not this thing that I like strive after. And there's a lot of wrestling fans. They think it's the most magical place. I'm like, it's some glass, like whatever.
Ain't no Minreg Hall, but
yeah, it's not Minreg Hall. But they only drew like 721, and that's not strong numbers. I'm wondering if they'll see like the lucrativeness of even coming back to that building.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very cool looking venue and definitely very unique, but yeah, I don't know if that's Kyoto's a hot city for New Japan. All right, well, that's going to take us into what's coming up this week. You want to run us through the cards?
Yeah, so we have night 8 of Super Juniors coming up this Wednesday, the 27th. In the block matches, we have Kanemaru taking on Daisuke Sasaki. Sho versus Hio. El Desperado versus Jacob Austin Young. Kushida versus Yo. Robbie Eagles versus Ishimori, and then your main event will be Jun Kasai and Francesco Akira.
Yeah, so getting an extra A block here mixed in with mainly B block competition, so there will be some undercard stuff, and seems like an okay night of action. That Akira Kasai match should be pretty good.
Yeah, are you surprised that the lone A block match is headlining the whole block night?
Nope.
Yeah, I think the Jun Kasai Francesco Akira match is going to be really fantastic. Francesco, I don't know if you saw Francesco Akira attacked him
in post match, yeah, and almost jabbed him with the fork, which is a call back to the whole Drilla Maloney stuff from the Dow Pound Cage match.
Yeah, Akira likes to fight, so it's going to be good to see those guys kind of go at it. That Ishimori Eagles match is interesting because you kind of think like Eagles could beat him and kind of even some points up and make it a little more even keeled going down the final stretch there.
Yeah, I feel like if Eagles is going to stay alive, he has to beat Ishimori here.
And if JAY beats Desperado, no shade, but that would be one of the biggest upsets in the tournament. I don't expect it, but he hasn't won anything really like major yet.
Yeah.
So maybe they like pull the trigger there.
We'll see.
I doubt it.
Yeah, that'd be a really big win.
Now, night 9 is also coming up Friday the 29th. So this is going to be all A block action. No, there's a B block match. These guys didn't show up that first night. It fucked up the whole entire thing. So the first B block match of the night, Kanemaru will take on Hyo. The rest of the matches are all A block. You have Wato versus Daiki Nagai, Taguchi versus Robbie X, Teton versus Nick Wayne, and then the main event is Kosei Fujita versus Valiente Jr.
Yeah, very interesting giving a Valiente main event spot here. We'll see how he does up against Fujita. We kind of talked about some of the struggles he's been having. That Teton Nick Wayne match in the semi-main event spot, that should be pretty great.
And both of those guys are alive and kind of thriving. I think Nick Wayne picks up that win there and kind of, gets back in the game a little bit. The main event I think could really be significant because I think Fujita does win, but there's sort of the underlying story of like, what if Valiente Jr. beats him? Then he's sort of on the bubble for like not even, basically he would potentially be the ultimate spoiler because he's putting him in real contention to not even qualify for the playoffs. So there's some danger there for him. He's going to beat Valiente Jr., but there's going to be that constant threat of if he loses, he's kind of fucked.
Yeah. So it's kind of do or die for him.
Night 10, Saturday, May the 30th, we have Hyo versus Jacob Austin Young, Kanemaru versus Yo, Daisuke Sasaki versus Robbie Eagles, Kushida versus Desperado. The main event will be Taiji Ishimori versus Sho.
Yeah, this looks pretty mid.
Yeah, this is not. There's always that. You kind of have to appreciate a little bit, though, that they're thoughtful enough to know which matches are going to be bad in the block and then decide to just put them all on the same night so you don't have to get it out of the way,
Yeah.
It's respectful of your time.
Yeah, this should be a fun one, all right. Kushida Desperado, if they that could be good if Kushida, actually put his working boots on.
They might ball, but Kushida's just not. He's a non-factor at this point almost.
Yeah, Ishimori versus Sho, I think is going to be very important points wise, but will probably end up being horrible.
Agreed. Yeah. So there's some stuff to look forward to in this coming week, but if I'm being totally honest, this is the third of the way, or not third. What am I thinking of? Like 3/4. This is like the third quarter of the tournament, and this is where things just sort of seem to kind of drag. Happens with the G1 too, and I don't know. This is not looking on paper to be even close to the first 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna do it for our best Super Junior talk. I didn't grab any other news stories. I don't know if there's anything that you saw that we need to.
I didn't do the news this week like I normally would, but I'll just take a look and see what we missed. Hopefully nothing major has happened that is worth discussing. But if it is, I'll add it to next week, and we'll chat it up.
All right. Well, a few off-topic questions here, real quick, that are all fight/film related for you. So HB.
Okay, so you took care of all the boring stuff last week and left me with just the cool things.
Yes.
Nice.
HB Brad Valoria, thoughts on Inui Nakatani? Is Inui once again the pound for pound number one after his win over another pound for pound talent? Can New Japan ever get over 50K to attend the Tokyo Dome again? So that's two separate questions there.
That match was a chess match. Some people didn't enjoy it as much as I did. I thought it was very, very high level. I will say that I watched it in a public place without the sound on, so I wasn't able to hear commentary. I wasn't scoring the fight live, but I sort of needed, I kind of thought Nakatani was leading on the scorecards going down the stretch. But I wasn't giving the fight enough of my attention to really truly determine that. And then my stream broke down the last round and a half, so I kind of missed what happened there. But regardless, Inui was fantastic. And if I'd answered this a couple weeks ago, I probably would have said that I still consider Usyk as the pound for pound best. But after this performance that he just had this last weekend, and there's a little bit of time separated here between that and this question, I do believe that Inui, based on this win plus all of his previous wins, is probably the pound for pound best fighter in boxing right now.
So this other question was, can New Japan ever get over 50K to attend the Tokyo Dome again?
The reason he's asking that is because Inui and Nakatani sold out the Tokyo Dome. It's the biggest fight in the history of Japan, ever, world title fight. So yeah, they did well over 50K. Of course, it's always possible. Right now, do I think the company is in a position to do that again in the near future? No, but I don't see any reason that that's not attainable again in the future.
Yeah. Also, you see the right star, the right feud, the right card. But yeah, I think it's gonna take some time till they build back up to get to a potential card like that. Next question, thoughts on Daniel Dubois versus Fabio Wardley. How do you feel about the stoppage?
So I had trouble finding a good stream for this fight or even just any sort of archive. And I don't feel like giving DAZN the money for this thing. But I didn't have great thoughts about Dubois and Wardley fighting for one of the title, one of the split titles again. Dubois had already won one of those titles and then lost it back into the to Usyk to reunify everything again. And because of politics, now it's split off again, and it's kind of stupid. I did see the clips of the fight, on Twitter and stuff. I saw some montages, and these guys were killing each other. It's pretty much unanimously recognized as probably the toughest fight of this year in boxing, the most violent, and probably a front runner for fight of the year. But I haven't seen the full fight. I didn't see the stoppage or watch it in depth enough to really know, based on where the fight was when it happened, was it bad or good? But I'm going to watch that. It's on the on my schedule of what to do this week. I'm definitely watching that fight because I did find a place I could actually do that.
Nice. Let's go to 7252. Quick thoughts on the 15-second Ronda Rousey win. Some say that it was rigged, but what say you?
So, without getting into the nitty-gritty of what that card was and how it, performed, none of that's really relevant to this question. But the fight itself, it made all the sense in the world to me. Ronda, at any time when these two were going to fight, whether it was 6 or 7 years ago when it got blown up by Dana White, or whether it's now, it was always going to be a situation of like, hey, Gina's an incredible stand-up fighter, a very tough girl, but she's limited in her skill set. And Ronda's one of the greatest women judokas of all time. It was always going to be that she was going to get her hands on that girl. She was never going to take the risk of like standing and striking with her, and she's going to take her down, armbar her. And I did see people like literally saying because of the quick nature of things that it was a fix. I saw that armbar. She was trying to rip. It was quick, but she was hyperextending the shit out of that arm. And we've already seen what a Ronda Rousey worked shoot style match looks like in WWE. We saw that with her and Shayna Baszler. Mm-hmm. So I know what Ronda trying to pretend to hurt somebody, how that differs and looks from like Ronda is actually fucking a girl up. This was always going to happen, and I wasn't surprised at all. And I think it's surprising so many people were calling that a fixed fight.
Yeah, especially when you look at how Ronda became a big name, was her getting all these quick wins over girls and doing the armbar. Like that was, she had that Goldberg-esque kind of build where like, she was essentially, he's a wrestling term, squashing girls, and it was these quick fights, armbar kind of thing. So
it was more like Goldberg though, because it was in the main event.
Yeah. So it's very similar to what got her big and what her skill set is. So when I heard about it, I was not surprised that it was a quick win.
I think the main thing for me that solidified it was not any sort of work is she threw as hard as she fucking could punches from the mount to set up that armbar. And I've seen some people pretend like they've looked at the angle and they're like, oh, she wasn't sinking it in, the perfect way that you would. And like, you're supposed to have the thumb up essentially. Mm-hmm. And she didn't have, like, she had the wrist up, which gives you a little bit more, traction, or not traction, but like just a range of motion. And it's harder to tap somebody with that, but you absolutely can if you're putting enough torque on it. And her elbow was hyperextending when she tapped out. So like nothing about that screamed fake.
Yeah.
Now I will tell you this though. I do think there was a fixed fight recently. A lot of people will not agree with me on this. I think Sean Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev, I think they fucking worked everybody. Without going into details of what happened, basically the first round was dominated by the favored champion. And then after that, the challenger comes back and is perfectly able to get back into the fight. And then they go back and forth for the next 4 rounds. At no point was anybody seriously hurt. They're basically doing the equivalent of like hard sparring. But back in the old days, old MMA heads used to know that if you see the champion dominate the first round and then get totally shut down the next round, and then the guys go to a listless decision and there's an upset, that is always key indicators of a potential worked fight.
Mm.
And this is the same work that pro wrestling used to do back from the 1800s up until like the 1930s, is when gambling existed. The whole reason that a 2 out of 3 falls match for titles even exists is to assist wrestlers and their managers and promoters in order to juke the odds so they can go and place their own bet because they know how the match is going to finish, and they do it when the line shifts. And then they like have scammed everybody when they get their payment and they just skip town. You have the favored guy do well at first, and then the kid comes back, and then the kid has him on the ropes. And when you start doing that, the crowd changes. You bet in real time. I guarantee you that those two guys set this whole thing up to shift the line as much as possible, and then worked the rest of the match knowing who was going to win. I bet you they have a fence somewhere that placed a bet, and those guys, they don't get paid enough fucking money to fight anyways in the UFC. These guys were supplementing their income that night.
Last question here, and we'll wrap the show up. Dragon Master Adam, what's been Josh's top 3 films of the year so far? Also, Jeremy, you too, if you have any.
That's a really tough question, but I would have to say I just saw Obsession, Curry Barker. If you guys, that's a horror movie. but it's really incredible. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend it. I gave that 5 stars. Project Hail Mary with Ryan Gosling. That's the best movie I've seen this year. And that's something I would recommend. You should see that, Jeremy. Project Hail Mary fucking rocks.
Okay.
I gave that 5 stars. I'm really torn on number 3. I don't know for sure that this is my 100% answer, but off the dome, maybe The Drama with Robert Pattinson and Zendaya. That movie is not what a lot of people expect it to be. You have to have kind of a stomach for some not horror stuff, but like dark sense of humor sort of material, because it gets dark. But it's a really good movie, and I was probably like 4.5 on that one.
Nice. Yeah, I really haven't watched a ton of movies this year, so I really don't have a top movies right now.
Bro, your top movies moving forward in the next couple of years, it's going to be like a Paw Patrol movie,
Bluey,
a Bluey movie. It's going to be all kids. It's going to be Pixar shit, because that's the only thing that you see.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to wrap things up for us. So next week we'll be back to review nights 8 through 10 of Best Super Junior 3030 and cover all this news. Remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KIStrongstyle. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KIStrongstyle, at Socialsuplex, at Jeremy Donovan, at YB_Josh and Liger. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Socialsuplex and the Wrestling Square Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, on the Throwback Guide, that's Keeping Strong Style. On YouTube, we're at Social Suplex. You can join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com, and check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio with Fritz Latta and James Boyd. All in the Elite with Floyd and Austin. Imp's AEW Adventure. Wrestling Art of Chris Things. The AEW Match Guy with Cersei and Brown. Tone Talk with Allie and Leah. The Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. And Joshing Around with Tim and Eric. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keeping It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.